You're gonna be a father.
Are you sure? Then explain this.
Where did you get it?
This isn't about the baby.
Christian Cooper was 38, a structural engineer in Columbus, Ohio, whose faded Navy work jacket made him look more like a foreman than the man who signed multi-million-dollar bridge projects. Most people believed his beautiful wife, Ariana, had settled for a quiet man with little ambition. They saw his old Ford pickup, his worn leather wallet, and his habit of listening more than speaking. What they didn't know was that Christian had spent 6 weeks preparing for this exact night. When Ariana lifted her champagne glass and smiled, "You're going to be a father," the ballroom erupted in applause. Christian Rose slowly slipped a sealed envelope from inside his jacket and rested it on the crystal tablecloth before saying his first word. "If you're watching from somewhere in the world, let me know your country and your local time. In the comments, I always enjoy seeing where these stories reach. And if you love slow-burning stories where patience, evidence, and justice matter more than revenge, don't forget to subscribe. There's another unforgettable story waiting for you tomorrow." Christian Cooper had spent most of his adult life building structures that other people trusted without ever noticing who designed them. The skyline of Columbus carried his fingerprints in ways no one could see. A pedestrian bridge over the Scioto River. The steel framework beneath the new pediatric wing at Riverside Methodist Hospital. 3 distribution centers outside Dublin that processed thousands of shipments every day. His calculations held thousands of tons of concrete and steel together, yet almost nobody outside the engineering world knew his name. That never bothered him. Recognition had never been the reason he chose engineering. Every weekday, his alarm sounded at 5:15 a.m. By 6 o'clock, he was already driving east along Interstate 670 in the same dark blue Ford F-150 he had owned for nearly 11 years. The truck had over 200,000 miles on it. The driver's seat showed cracks along one edge, and the dashboard carried scratches from years of blueprints and coffee mugs sliding across it. His coworkers often joked that someone with his salary should at least buy a luxury SUV. Christian always smiled. "The truck still runs," he would answer. That was usually the end of the conversation. At Buckeye Structural Engineering Group, people respected him for reasons entirely different from the ones that impressed strangers. He never raised his voice. He never blamed junior engineers when calculations failed. He never took credit for another person's work. When a project hit unexpected complications, everyone naturally looked toward Christian. Not because he spoke the loudest, but because he usually found the answer before anyone else finished arguing. His office reflected the same personality. No expensive artwork, no framed awards, 1 bookshelf, a drafting table, 2 engineering textbooks with pages worn from constant use. A framed photograph sat beside his computer monitor. It showed Christian and Ariana on their wedding day 7 years earlier. He looked almost uncomfortable in his tuxedo. She looked radiant. The photograph had been taken outside Franklin Park Conservatory, beneath blooming white roses. Every morning before opening his laptop, Christian glanced at that picture for exactly 2 seconds. It had become a habit. Not because he was sentimental, because routines helped him organize his thoughts. Outside the office, however, almost everyone viewed the marriage differently. To most people, Ariana Cooper was the obvious success story. She possessed the kind of effortless confidence that filled every room she entered. She remembered birthdays without checking calendars. She could hold conversations with CEOs, waiters, politicians, and strangers at airport terminals with exactly the same charm. People naturally gravitated toward her. Christian rarely interrupted. That silence often allowed others to invent stories about him. Some believed he lacked ambition. Others assumed Ariana managed the household finances because she appeared more sophisticated. At neighborhood gatherings, conversations usually drifted toward Ariana, while Christian quietly helped refill drinks or carried folding chairs into the garage before anyone asked. No one noticed. He preferred it that way. Even family members misunderstood him. His older brother, Nathan Cooper, owned a chain of successful fitness centers across central Ohio. Nathan admired Christian, but often teased him anyway. "You know," Nathan laughed during one Sunday barbecue, "if you dressed like someone making six figures, people might stop offering you entry-level advice." Christian looked down at his faded work jacket. "I already have clothes." The backyard erupted with laughter. Nathan shook his head. "You make it too easy." Their mother, Linda Cooper, smiled warmly from the patio table. She loved both sons equally, but often worried that Christian allowed others to overshadow him. "Sometimes," she told him privately months earlier, "being quiet lets people write the wrong story about you." Christian had simply squeezed her hand. "Stories change." She hadn't understood what he meant. Neither had anyone else. Ariana's closest friend, Melissa Carter, certainly hadn't. Melissa worked in luxury real estate and adored glamorous parties, expensive vacations, and social media photographs filled with designer handbags and rooftop restaurants. Whenever couples gathered together, Melissa joked that Ariana deserved a husband who enjoyed attention. "Christian," she once teased over dinner, "if someone offered you front row seats at the Oscars, you'd probably stay home and organize your toolbox." Everyone laughed. Christian laughed too. He never corrected anyone. He had learned long ago that defending himself against assumptions rarely changed opinions. Actions did. Still, something inside their marriage had quietly begun changing. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Little things. Tiny interruptions in routines that only someone like Christian would notice. Ariana had always left her phone charging on the kitchen counter overnight. Now it never left her side. She began turning the screen face down whenever messages appeared. She started taking phone calls outside on the back patio. Sometimes she smiled while reading messages. Sometimes she immediately deleted them. Christian noticed every detail. He said nothing. 3 weeks later, she began scheduling afternoon appointments she described vaguely. Meeting a client. Lunch downtown. Helping Melissa. The explanations sounded reasonable. Individually. Together, they formed a pattern. Christian never followed her. He never searched her purse. He never demanded passwords. Instead, he simply observed. Years of engineering had trained him to identify patterns before conclusions. One missing bolt meant nothing. 20 missing bolts suggested a design failure. The same principle applied to people. Then came the credit card statements. Normally, Ariana spent predictably: groceries, restaurants, clothing, occasional gifts. Beginning in late March, new charges appeared: luxury hotel valet fees, private conference rooms, upscale restaurants in neighborhoods she claimed never to visit. Several cash withdrawals exceeded $2,000 each. Christian reviewed the monthly statement twice, then a third time. He placed it back inside the envelope. Still no confrontation. At work, nothing changed. He continued leading meetings, reviewed structural drawings, inspected construction sites, signed engineering certifications. Nobody suspected his mind had become occupied by questions he refused to answer without evidence. One rainy Thursday afternoon, his project manager entered his office carrying revised bridge calculations. "We've got another issue with Pier 4. Christian studied the drawings for less than 60 seconds. "Column B6 is carrying 12% more load than projected." The manager blinked. "I hadn't even reached that page yet." Christian nodded quietly. "Run the numbers again." They did. He was correct. Again. By 5 o'clock, everyone had forgotten the mistake. Christian hadn't. His ability to notice tiny inconsistencies wasn't talent. It was discipline. The same discipline now watched his own marriage. Late one Friday evening, Ariana walked through the front door carrying shopping bags from Easton Town Center. She kissed Christian on the cheek before setting everything on the kitchen island. "You've been working late again." "So have you," she smiled. "Busy season." He returned the smile. Neither asked another question. As she disappeared upstairs, Christian noticed something unusual. One shopping bag contained no receipts. Another looked almost empty, despite its size. He quietly rinsed his coffee mug. Nothing more. Weeks passed. His notebook slowly filled with dates, times, locations. Nothing emotional. Only facts. April 12th. Left home 1:18 p.m. Returned 5:41 p.m. Claimed lunch with Melissa. Melissa posted photographs from Cleveland that afternoon. April 18th. Cash withdrawal. $3,000. April 24th. Unknown office building. Downtown Columbus. Stayed 94 minutes. Christian never labeled any observation, not affair, not betrayal, only information waiting for context, because information without context was only noise. One Monday morning in early May, the receptionist at Buckeye Structural Engineering called his extension. "Christian, there's a package here addressed only to you." "I wasn't expecting one." "No return address." "I'll come down." The envelope waiting at the front desk was thick, plain brown, and sealed with ordinary packing tape. No company logo, no handwritten note, only his full name typed neatly across the front. Christian thanked the receptionist and carried it upstairs without opening it. Back inside his office, he locked the door for the first time in years. He placed the envelope carefully in the center of his desk. For several long seconds, he simply looked at it. Then he reached for a letter opener. As the blade slipped beneath the seal, a stack of medical documents slowly slid into view. The first page carried the unmistakable logo of the Columbus Center for Reproductive Medicine. Christian's breathing became perfectly still. He had never requested these records. Someone had wanted him to see them. Christian did not open the medical documents immediately. Instead, he closed the office blinds, muted his phone, and switched off the overhead lights, leaving only the desk lamp glowing across the polished walnut surface. It was the same routine he followed whenever he reviewed structural failure reports. Emotions had no place in analysis. Every conclusion had to begin with verified facts. He removed the first document from the envelope. The heading read, "Columbus Center for Reproductive Medicine Patient. Record Summary." His name appeared underneath. Christian Cooper, date of birth, social security number. Every personal detail matched perfectly. The report itself did not. His eyes stopped on a single sentence. "Patient demonstrates viable reproductive capacity following recent examination." He read it again, then a third time. Nothing about the sentence made sense. Nearly 8 years earlier, Christian had been involved in a catastrophic construction accident outside Cincinnati. A temporary steel support had failed during a renovation project. Although nobody died, several workers suffered serious injuries, including Christian. Months of surgeries followed. Rehabilitation consumed almost a year of his life. Among countless medical appointments came one conversation he had never forgotten. Dr. Samuel Harris, a reproductive specialist, had reviewed multiple laboratory analyses before speaking with careful precision. "The injuries permanently affected your reproductive system," the physician had explained. "I'm sorry, Christian. The damage is irreversible." Christian remembered every detail of that afternoon. The beige consultation room, the rain striking the windows, the untouched paper cup of water sitting beside him. He had asked for a second opinion, then a third. 3 different specialists reached the same conclusion: permanent infertility. He accepted it, not happily, not immediately, but eventually. When he met Ariana 2 years later, he told her before their relationship became serious. She cried. She hugged him. Then she said something he had believed with all his heart. "I married you," she whispered, "not the idea of children." Those words had stayed with him for 7 years. Now the paperwork lying across his desk suggested someone had rewritten reality. Christian continued reading. The examination date listed on the report was less than 3 months earlier. Impossible. He had never visited the clinic. He turned to the next page. Laboratory values. Hormone levels. Physician notes. electronic approval signatures. Everything appeared authentic. Too authentic. That detail disturbed him most. Fake documents usually contained obvious mistakes. These did not. Someone had invested significant effort into making them believable. Christian carefully compared the signatures against the originals stored in his personal medical records, which he kept in a locked cabinet at home. The signatures looked identical. The formatting matched. Even the barcode in the upper corner appeared legitimate. His engineering instincts immediately rejected the obvious conclusion. If two structures appeared identical, but one had secretly replaced its foundation, the visible similarity meant nothing. He needed independent verification. He placed every document back into chronological order. No fingerprints, no handwritten notes, no indication of who had mailed them. Inside the envelope he found only one additional item, a small flash drive, completely black, no label, no manufacturer logo. Christian stared at it for several seconds before placing it beside the paperwork. He would not insert an unknown storage device into his office computer. That decision required no deliberation. Instead, he locked both items inside his desk drawer and finished the remaining workday exactly as scheduled. At 4 o'clock, he attended a bridge design review. At 5:30, he answered 3 client emails. At 6:15, he left the office. Nothing in his outward appearance suggested the foundation of his marriage had begun shifting beneath him. The drive home felt unusually quiet. Traffic moved slowly along Interstate 70 as thunderstorms gathered west of Columbus. Christian kept both hands on the steering wheel. He wasn't thinking about betrayal. Not yet. He was thinking about probability. If the records were genuine, someone had examined him without his knowledge. Impossible. If the records were fabricated, someone possessed confidential medical information. Also impossible. Both explanations required crimes. Neither allowed room for coincidence. When he pulled into the driveway, Ariana's white Lexus SUV was already parked inside the garage. She opened the front door before he reached it. "There you are." She smiled naturally. "I was about to order dinner." "What are you thinking?" "Thai." "Sounds good." Nothing seemed unusual. She kissed him lightly before walking towards the kitchen. Christian watched her for only a moment. Had someone trained to detect deception been standing nearby, perhaps subtle clues would have appeared. Christian wasn't looking for those. He was observing patterns. She moved exactly as she always did, placed her handbag on the same chair, turned on the kitchen lights, opened the refrigerator. Everything appeared perfectly ordinary. Dinner arrived 40 minutes later. They ate while discussing neighborhood construction, Nathan's newest fitness center, and an upcoming anniversary dinner Ariana had been planning for weeks. She laughed. He laughed. If either carried secrets, neither revealed them. Later that evening, after Ariana fell asleep, Christian quietly entered the home office. A small fireproof cabinet stood beneath the bookshelf. Inside rested every important document accumulated throughout his adult life: insurance policies, property deeds, investment statements, medical files. He removed the thick folder labeled medical records. Within minutes, he found the original fertility evaluations. 3 hospitals, 3 specialists, 3 identical conclusions. Permanent infertility. He compared every page against the anonymous records. One difference immediately appeared: the physician identification numbers. The names looked identical. The signatures looked identical. The medical license numbers were not. Someone had substituted licensed physicians with entirely different identification credentials. It was subtle, almost invisible. Most people would never notice. Christian noticed. He photographed both versions using his phone. Then he closed the folders without disturbing their order. His next step required someone outside the family, someone who understood both evidence and law. The following morning, he requested a private meeting with Benjamin Hayes. Benjamin had been Christian's attorney for nearly 5 years. Unlike flashy television lawyers, Benjamin preferred quiet conference rooms and carefully organized binders over dramatic courtroom speeches. His office occupied the 12th floor of a downtown Columbus building overlooking the Scioto River. When Christian arrived, Benjamin immediately sensed something unusual. "You sounded serious." Christian placed the anonymous documents on the conference table. "I need to know whether these are real." Benjamin adjusted his reading glasses. For nearly 20 minutes, he studied every page without interruption. Finally, he leaned back. "Where did these come from?" "I don't know." "Who else has seen them?" "No one." Benjamin nodded slowly. "Good." He folded his hands together. "The first thing you're going to do is absolutely nothing." Christian expected that answer. Benjamin continued. "You don't confront anyone. No accusations. No emotional conversations. If these records are forged, confronting the wrong person only gives them time to destroy evidence." Christian remained silent. Benjamin looked directly at him. "I've represented clients who ruined excellent cases because they wanted immediate answers." "I don't." "I know." Benjamin tapped the folder. "That's why we're going to do this correctly." He opened his laptop and typed several notes. "First, we'll independently verify every medical record. Second, we'll identify how these documents were generated. Third, we'll determine who benefits from creating them. And Ariana—" Benjamin paused before answering. "You treat her exactly as you treated her yesterday." Christian nodded once. "No changes. No suspicion. No arguments." Benjamin smiled faintly. "I've always appreciated how your mind works." He reached into another folder and removed a business card. "If this grows into something larger than document verification, you'll need someone else." The card read Marcus Bennett, licensed private investigator, former Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation. Benjamin slid the card across the table. "Marcus specializes in financial crimes, digital evidence, and surveillance. I've worked with him for 12 years. He doesn't speculate. He documents." Christian picked up the card. "When should I call him?" Benjamin answered without hesitation. "Today." 2 hours later, Christian sat inside a quiet coffee shop near German Village waiting for the investigator. Marcus Bennett arrived precisely on time. He was in his early 50s, wore an inexpensive gray sport coat, and carried no briefcase, only a weathered leather notebook. After introductions, Christian summarized everything without exaggeration. Marcus listened without interrupting. When the explanation ended, he asked only one question. "What outcome are you hoping for?" Christian stared through the cafe window toward the passing traffic. "The truth." Marcus nodded. "Good. Because that's the only thing I know how to find." 3 days later, Marcus called. His voice remained calm. "I've confirmed something." Christian tightened his grip on the phone. "What?" "Your wife has been meeting the same unidentified man repeatedly." The line went silent. Marcus spoke again. "And Christian, those meetings aren't happening at restaurants." "They're taking place inside the executive offices of Whitmore Urban Development." Marcus Bennett believed that good surveillance was mostly an exercise in patience. Movies had taught people that private investigators spent their days chasing speeding cars, climbing fences, and photographing secret lovers through rain-covered windows. Real investigations looked very different. Most of the work involved waiting, documenting, comparing timelines, and refusing to jump to conclusions before the facts aligned. That philosophy was one reason Benjamin Hayes trusted Marcus with his most sensitive cases. 3 days after their first meeting, Marcus parked an unremarkable silver Honda Accord across the street from Whitmore Urban Development's headquarters in downtown Columbus. The building occupied 12 floors of polished glass and limestone facing Capitol Square. Whitmore Urban Development had earned a reputation over the previous decade for luxury apartment complexes, mixed-use developments, and commercial office renovations throughout central Ohio. Its founder and chief executive officer, Ryan Whitmore, frequently appeared in local business magazines. He donated to charities, attended ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and sat on the boards of several nonprofit organizations. Publicly, he represented success. Privately, Marcus knew almost nothing about him. That would soon change. At precisely 1:42 p.m., Ariana's white Lexus entered the underground parking garage beneath the building. Marcus noted the time. Weather clear. Vehicle white Lexus RX 350. License confirmed. He never wrote opinions, only observations. Using a temporary parking permit obtained through legal investigative channels, Marcus entered the garage 10 minutes later. He remained inside his own vehicle and watched employees move through the elevators. At 1:51 p.m., Ariana stepped into the executive elevator. She carried no shopping bags, no laptop, only a slim leather portfolio. Marcus photographed the moment. 2 hours later, she exited the building. Still carrying the same portfolio, no visible signs of distress, no hurried movements, no emotional phone calls. She drove away. Marcus did not follow. One observation alone proved nothing. The next day, he repeated the process. Again, Ariana arrived. Again, she entered the executive offices. Again, she remained inside for nearly 2 hours. The pattern continued. 4 visits within 8 days, always during weekday afternoons, always to the same office. Marcus expanded the investigation. Public corporate filings revealed that Whitmore Urban Development owned more than 20 commercial properties across Ohio. Nothing unusual there. Its financial statements appeared healthy. Construction projects continued moving forward. No lawsuits beyond routine commercial disputes. Again, nothing remarkable. Then Marcus examined visitor access records legally obtained through a cooperating security contractor. Only one executive consistently approved Ariana's entry. Ryan Whitmore. Not his assistant, not building security, Ryan himself. Marcus made no assumptions. Business meetings happened every day. Still, he called Christian that evening. "I've confirmed repeated meetings." Christian remained silent for several seconds. "Can you tell why they're meeting?" "Not yet." "Do you think it's personal?" Marcus answered immediately. "I don't think." "I verify." Christian appreciated the response. "When will you know more?" "When the evidence tells me." The following Monday, Marcus adjusted his strategy. Instead of watching the building entrance, he monitored the executive parking level reserved exclusively for senior management. At 4:18 p.m., Ryan Whitmore's black Mercedes S-Class appeared. Ryan exited carrying a slim aluminum briefcase. Tall, early 40s, tailored charcoal suit, perfect posture. Nothing unusual. 7 minutes later, Ariana emerged from the executive elevator. Ryan greeted her with a handshake. Not a hug. Not obvious intimacy. They exchanged a brief conversation before entering the Mercedes together. Marcus quietly started his engine. The surveillance vehicle remained 3 cars behind as traffic flowed north through downtown Columbus. They crossed the Scioto River before stopping at an upscale restaurant in Dublin, known for hosting corporate lunches and executive dinners. Marcus entered separately. He selected a table with an indirect view. Years of experience had taught him that staring directly at subjects attracted unnecessary attention. He ordered coffee, opened a newspaper, watched reflections instead of faces. Ryan and Ariana occupied a corner booth. No physical affection, no romantic gestures. Instead, folders appeared across the table. Documents. Several pages required signatures. Ryan pointed repeatedly toward specific paragraphs. Ariana occasionally nodded. Marcus photographed each exchange using equipment concealed inside an ordinary camera bag. After 90 minutes, both stood. Ryan handed Ariana another sealed envelope. She placed it inside her leather portfolio without opening it. They shook hands again, then left separately. Marcus watched carefully. Still nothing confirmed an affair. If anything, the interaction resembled business. Yet one question continued bothering him. Why would Ariana repeatedly conduct private business with one of Columbus's largest real estate developers without mentioning it to her husband? That evening, Marcus submitted a preliminary report to Benjamin Hayes. The attorney read every page twice. Finally, he called Christian into his office. Benjamin placed several surveillance photographs across the conference table. Christian studied them quietly. He recognized Ariana immediately. Across from her sat Ryan Whitmore. Christian had never met him personally, but he knew the name. Buckeye Structural Engineering had once submitted structural proposals for one of Whitmore's commercial developments. Another engineering firm ultimately won the contract. Benjamin folded his hands. So far, we have no evidence of an affair. Christian nodded. I understand. We have repeated undisclosed meetings. Yes. We have document exchanges. Yes. We have no explanation. Christian looked again at the photographs. What should we do? Benjamin answered carefully. We continue. No confrontation? No accusations. We still don't know what we're looking at. Christian leaned back in his chair. His heartbeat remained steady. Years earlier, during bridge inspections, he had learned an important lesson. Visible cracks often distracted engineers from the hidden structural failures causing them. Treating the crack without understanding the foundation solved nothing. People worked the same way. Marcus expanded the investigation into Whitmore urban development itself. Corporate records led him toward several recently formed limited liability companies. Each company owned only one property. Each property had been purchased within 18 months. Nothing illegal. Yet something about the ownership structure seemed unusually complicated. The companies transferred money among themselves with surprising frequency. Real estate transactions often involved complex financing, but Marcus marked the pattern for later review. Meanwhile, Christian continued living exactly as Benjamin instructed. He went to work, shared dinners with Ariana, discussed weekend plans, even helped her select wine for their upcoming anniversary celebration. One Saturday afternoon, Ariana smiled while arranging invitation cards across the dining room table. I can't believe we've been married 7 years. Christian looked at the elegant gold lettering. Time moves fast. I want this anniversary to be unforgettable. I'm sure it will be. She laughed softly. You always trust me. Christian met her eyes. I've never had a reason not to. The words carried two meanings. Only he understood both. The following Tuesday, Marcus received another unexpected break. One of Ryan Whitmore's former administrative assistants agreed to speak confidentially after leaving the company months earlier. The meeting took place inside a quiet cafe outside Westerville. Marcus asked simple questions. How often did Ariana visit? Almost every week. Did she meet anyone besides Ryan? No. Were meetings social? They looked serious. Lots of paperwork. Sometimes legal documents, sometimes medical folders. Marcus stopped writing for a moment. Medical, the former assistant nodded. I remember because I thought it was strange. What kind of medical folders? I don't know. They came from hospitals. Marcus thanked her and ended the interview. For the first time, the anonymous fertility records in Whitmore urban development appeared connected. Still no conclusions, only another pattern. That afternoon, he contacted Benjamin immediately. There may be overlap between the medical documents and Whitmore. Benjamin frowned. Explain. Marcus summarized the interview. Benjamin remained silent. Finally, he spoke. I think we're looking at something much bigger. Christian arrived less than an hour later. Marcus laid the updated timeline across the conference table. Anonymous fertility records, repeated meetings, medical folders inside Ryan Whitmore's office, corporate document exchanges. Every event aligned chronologically. Christian studied the chart carefully. Then he noticed something no one else had mentioned. One date stood out, March 21st. The same afternoon, Ariana met Ryan Whitmore downtown. Christian opened the calendar stored on his phone. His expression changed almost imperceptibly. Benjamin noticed. What is it? Christian rotated the screen toward them. March 21st was the day Buckeye Structural Engineering transferred the first payment for the Franklin Commerce Center expansion. Marcus looked up. Whitmore owns that project. Christian nodded slowly. Yes. Benjamin's eyes narrowed. How much was the payment? Just over $6 million. The room fell silent. Marcus closed his notebook. I think it's time, he said quietly, to start following the money. Christian had learned early in his engineering career that money left patterns just as clearly as stress fractures inside concrete. Steel beams did not fail without warning. Budgets did not lose millions of dollars by accident. Someone always left a trace. The morning after Marcus connected Whitmore Urban Development to Buckeye Structural Engineering's Franklin Commerce Center project, Christian arrived at work earlier than usual. The office building remained almost empty. Only the maintenance crew and a handful of project managers had arrived before 7 o'clock. Christian unlocked his office and opened the financial folders for the Franklin Commerce Center expansion. He was not an accountant. He had never claimed to be. But every engineering project required him to review budgets before approving structural milestones. He understood how payments flowed. Within 30 minutes, one invoice drew his attention. It appeared completely ordinary. Consulting services. Phase 3 engineering support. Amount $486,000. Vendor, Midwest Infrastructure Consulting. Christian frowned. He had never heard of the company. That alone meant very little. Large projects frequently involved dozens of subcontractors. Still, something felt unusual. He searched the project database. No engineering reports, no inspection records, no design revisions, no meeting minutes. Nothing connected Midwest Infrastructure Consulting to the project except invoices requesting payment. He checked another invoice. Different amount. Same company, another payment, then another. His expression remained unchanged. But his mind had already begun assembling a timeline. At 9 o'clock, he walked down the hallway toward the Executive Finance Department. The Chief Financial Officer, David Reynolds, had worked beside Christian for nearly 12 years. David possessed a reputation for relentless attention to detail. He wore reading glasses low on his nose, carried mechanical pencils instead of pens, and trusted spreadsheets more than verbal explanations. When Christian entered, David looked up from his monitor. "You never visit accounting. I have a question." David leaned back. "That usually means I should clear my schedule." Christian placed copies of 3 invoices across the desk. "Can you tell me what these payments were for?" David adjusted his glasses. At first, nothing about the paperwork seemed unusual. Purchase orders existed. Approval signatures appeared valid. Electronic payment confirmations matched accounting records. Then David typed the vendor name into the company's internal database. Nothing appeared. He frowned. "That's odd." He searched again. Still nothing. The vendor should have a profile. Christian remained silent. David opened another database reserved for vendor registration. Again, nothing. His eyebrows slowly narrowed. No tax documentation. No insurance certificates. No compliance forms. That's impossible. Christian asked quietly, "Can payments be processed without vendor registration?" David answered immediately. "No." He clicked through additional accounting screens. The silence inside the office stretched longer with every passing minute. Finally, David stopped moving the mouse. His face had lost its usual calm expression. "I need to see something." He disappeared into the secure records room. When he returned 15 minutes later, he carried several printed ledgers. Together, they began comparing every payment connected to Midwest Infrastructure Consulting. The results became increasingly disturbing. The company had received 12 separate wire transfers, total value just over $4.8 million. Yet not one engineering employee had submitted work orders connected to those invoices. David whispered almost to himself. How did this get approved? Christian examined the authorization signatures. His own digital signature appeared on 2 documents. He had never signed them. David noticed the same thing. You didn't approve these? No. I'm certain. David compared timestamp records. The approvals were entered while you were at a construction site. Christian nodded. I have GPS logs from company vehicles. David looked directly at him. If someone forged executive approvals. He stopped speaking. Neither man wanted to finish the sentence because both understood the consequences. Corporate fraud. David immediately locked his office door. I need to perform a complete audit. Christian asked only one question. Quietly, David answered. Very quietly. For the next 5 days, David worked after normal office hours. He trusted only 2 senior accountants. Both signed confidentiality agreements before reviewing a single document. The deeper they searched, the stranger everything became. Midwest Infrastructure Consulting was only one company. Another appeared, Great Lakes Design Solutions. Then another, Pioneer Urban Analytics. Each company existed legally. Each possessed tax identification numbers. Each submitted professional-looking invoices. None employed actual engineers. None completed measurable work. Millions of dollars had disappeared through companies that looked legitimate only from a distance. Late Friday evening, David invited Christian into the finance department again. Stacks of binders covered the conference table. Colored tabs divided every category. Wire transfers, invoices, electronic approvals, bank confirmations, vendor registrations. David rubbed his tired eyes. I stopped counting after 18 shell companies. Christian looked at him. How much? David inhaled slowly. Approximately $11.7 million. The number hung in the room. Neither man spoke for several moments. Christian finally asked, Do all the payments connect to Whitmore projects? David turned another page. Almost all. Marcus Bennett joined them an hour later. After reviewing the preliminary audit, he circled several bank routing numbers. I've seen these before. Christian looked up. Where? Marcus opened his notebook. Several shell companies use the same regional bank. They're technically different businesses, but they're controlled through nearly identical corporate structures. David frowned. Can we prove that Not yet. Marcus closed the notebook. But I know exactly where to look. Benjamin Hayes arrived shortly afterward. Once he finished reading the audit summary, he spoke in the careful tone Christian had come to trust. This investigation has crossed into criminal territory. Christian nodded once. I thought so, Benjamin continued. From this moment forward, every document must remain untouched. No copies leave this room without documentation. No conversations outside this group. No warnings to anyone. David looked uneasy. If this becomes public, Benjamin interrupted gently. It won't. Not until federal authorities decide otherwise. The following Monday morning, Benjamin contacted a longtime colleague inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. By Wednesday afternoon, Special Agent Laura Mitchell walked into Benjamin's office. She introduced herself with a firm handshake. Early 40s, dark business suit, precise speech. Years investigating financial crimes had given her the habit of listening far longer than speaking. She spent nearly 3 hours reviewing every document. She asked surprisingly few questions. When she finally closed the final binder, she looked toward Christian. Did you confront your wife? No. Did anyone at your company know about this audit? Only the people in this room. Laura nodded approvingly. Good. She turned toward David. Has anyone attempted to alter accounting records? Not yet. Laura remained thoughtful. That usually changes once people realize someone's looking. She requested copies of only a handful of documents. Not all of them. Only enough to begin obtaining federal subpoenas. As the meeting ended, Laura paused beside Christian. There's something else. He waited. You mentioned anonymous fertility records. Yes? Laura considered the timeline. I think we need to determine whether medical fraud and financial fraud overlap. Benjamin agreed. That's exactly where we're headed. Laura made one phone call before leaving the building. 2 days later, she returned with another person. Dr. Emily Foster, Director of Compliance for the Columbus Center for Reproductive Medicine. Unlike investigators and attorneys, Dr. Foster spoke with the calm precision of someone accustomed to difficult conversations. Christian handed her both sets of fertility records. She compared them quietly. Less than 5 minutes later, she looked up. These documents were altered. Christian remained expressionless. How can you tell? She pointed toward several electronic authentication codes printed beneath the physician's signatures. Our hospital changed verification software 2 years ago. These records combine old formatting with new authentication keys. She flipped another page. This barcode belongs to a completely different patient file. Benjamin leaned forward. So someone intentionally modified medical records, Dr. Foster answered without hesitation. Yes, and whoever did it had access to our internal database. Laura Mitchell immediately began taking notes. Dr. Foster continued. We also maintain security logs for every access. Christian asked, Can those logs identify who changed the files? They should. Laura looked toward Benjamin. We need those records preserved immediately. Dr. Foster's expression became unexpectedly serious. I requested them yesterday. Everyone in the room looked at her. What happened? Laura asked. Dr. Foster took a slow breath. When our IT department attempted to retrieve the access logs, she stopped. They were gone. Silence filled the conference room. Laura's voice hardened. Deleted? Dr. Foster nodded. Every audit log covering the last 4 months. Marcus slowly closed his notebook. Someone knows we're getting close. Laura stood immediately. From this point forward, assume every piece of evidence is at risk. As she reached the door, her phone vibrated. She answered, listened for several seconds, then looked back toward the room. Her expression had changed completely. The clinic's security department just called. What happened? Benjamin asked. Laura lowered the phone. Someone erased the surveillance footage from the night those medical records were accessed. The disappearance of the clinic's audit logs transformed the investigation overnight. Until then, Laura Mitchell had viewed the case as a sophisticated financial fraud that happened to include forged medical records. Once the security logs and surveillance footage vanished, she recognized something far more dangerous. Someone inside the system was actively destroying evidence. That required planning, access, and confidence that no one would notice. The following morning, Laura assembled a small federal task force inside a secure conference room at the Columbus FBI field office. Only 5 people attended. Laura, an experienced forensic accountant, a digital evidence specialist named Ethan Brooks, a cybercrime analyst, and an assistant United States attorney assigned to financial corruption cases. Christian was not invited. Benjamin had warned him beforehand. From this point on, there will be meetings you shouldn't attend. Christian understood. The less I know, the safer the investigation. Benjamin nodded. Exactly. Instead of participating directly, Christian returned to work as though nothing had changed. He inspected bridge foundations, reviewed steel connection drawings, approved concrete testing reports. His coworkers noticed no difference. Only David Reynolds occasionally caught Christian studying project files with unusual intensity. Late Tuesday afternoon, David quietly entered Christian's office. I finished tracing another series of payments. Christian looked up. Find anything? David closed the door. I think I found the beginning. He spread several accounting reports across the desk. The shell companies weren't created to steal money. Christian examined the dates. They already existed? David nodded. Years before the Franklin Commerce Center project. So why activate them now? David pointed toward another page. Because Whitmore Urban Development suddenly started winning unusually large commercial contracts. Christian studied the timeline. The pattern became obvious. As Whitmore's projects increased in value, payments flowing toward the shell, companies increased almost proportionally. Not random, organized. Someone had designed the system long before using it. Meanwhile, Ethan Brooks began reconstructing the missing hospital evidence. Unlike many cybersecurity specialists, Ethan preferred old-fashioned persistence over dramatic hacking techniques. Deleted information rarely disappeared completely. People simply believed it had. Inside the reproductive clinic's server room, Ethan carefully examined backup systems, mirrored storage arrays, and archived maintenance files. The primary audit logs were gone. So were the secondary copies. Whoever erased them understood hospital information systems remarkably well. That observation interested Ethan. Most criminals deleted visible files. Very few remembered temporary synchronization records. By Thursday evening, Ethan recovered fragments of server activity from an overlooked maintenance archive. The information appeared incomplete. Only timestamps, device identifiers. No usernames. Still, it proved one important fact. Someone accessed confidential fertility records at 11:47 p.m., 2 days before the anonymous package reached Christian's office. Laura studied the recovered data. Can you identify the computer? Ethan nodded slowly. Not directly. But I know which network switch handled the traffic. He enlarged a technical diagram. The request originated inside the administrative wing. Dr. Emily Foster reviewed the building layout. There are only 6 offices connected to that switch. Laura immediately requested search warrants, not because she expected obvious evidence, because every hour increased the risk of additional destruction. The warrants were executed before sunrise the next morning. Federal agents quietly entered the clinic before employees arrived. Hard drives, external storage devices, network equipment, access cards, everything was documented and secured. Most staff members cooperated willingly. One office stood out. The office belonged to Michael Sanders, Senior Information Systems Administrator, age 46, employed by the clinic for nearly 11 years. His workstation appeared almost unnaturally clean. No handwritten notes, no personal photographs, no USB drives. Even his browser history had been wiped. Laura had investigated enough digital crimes to recognize excessive cleanliness as its own warning sign. People left traces. Only someone intentionally removing traces left none. Michael arrived shortly after 8 o'clock. He looked surprised by the federal agents but remained composed. Laura introduced herself politely. We have a warrant concerning electronic records. Michael nodded. I understand. He answered every question carefully, never too quickly, never too slowly. He admitted having administrator access. He admitted working late during the relevant week. He denied altering any medical records. Technically, nothing he said contradicted the evidence. Still, Laura noticed something. Every time the anonymous package was mentioned, Michael unconsciously touched his wedding ring. Not proof, simply behavior. She filed the observation away. Across town, Marcus Bennett continued following a different trail. Bank records obtained through legal subpoenas revealed that several shell companies shared the same registered accounting firm. The firm itself appeared legitimate. Small, respected, family-owned. Marcus interviewed one retired partner. The elderly accountant frowned while reviewing copied incorporation documents. I've never seen these. Marcus pointed toward the signature. Isn't that yours? The accountant removed his glasses, then looked again. No. It looks like mine. But it isn't. Marcus asked calmly, how can you tell? The older man smiled faintly. I always write my middle initial. The signature on the incorporation papers omitted it. Another forgery. Another carefully constructed illusion. Marcus immediately called Benjamin. They're forging professional identities everywhere. Benjamin sighed. Doctors, corporate approvals, accountants. What else? Neither knew yet. That evening, Christian arrived home to find Ariana preparing dinner. Soft jazz played through the kitchen speakers. Candles flickered on the dining table. She smiled warmly. I thought we deserved a quiet evening. Christian returned the smile. I agree. For almost 2 hours, they spoke about ordinary things. Nathan's newest gym, Linda's garden, vacation ideas. Ariana even discussed possible names for children someday. Christian listened quietly. Every sentence reminded him of the forged fertility records hidden inside Benjamin's office safe. He felt no anger, only growing confusion. If Ariana truly believed he could become a father, someone had deceived her too. Unless... He deliberately stopped that thought. Assumptions remained dangerous. After dinner, Ariana disappeared upstairs to answer a phone call. Christian remained in the kitchen washing dishes. Her voice drifted faintly through the ceiling. He couldn't distinguish the words, only the tone. Serious, brief. When she returned 10 minutes later, her expression looked perfectly normal. Everything okay? Christian asked. She nodded. Melissa. Wedding planning. Christian smiled. I hope everything works out. So do I. She kissed him lightly before heading to bed. Christian stayed awake another hour, not because he doubted her explanation, because he no longer accepted explanations without evidence. The following afternoon, Marcus requested another surveillance operation. This time he followed Ryan Whitmore rather than Ariana. Ryan left corporate headquarters shortly before 6 o'clock. Instead of driving home, he traveled west toward an industrial district outside Hilliard. The neighborhood contained aging warehouses and distribution centers, nothing resembling luxury real estate. Ryan parked beside a plain brick warehouse registered under one of the shell companies David had identified. Marcus photographed every movement. 10 minutes later, another vehicle arrived. A dark gray SUV. The driver stepped out carrying a locked aluminum equipment case. Marcus raised his camera, then froze. He recognized the man immediately. Michael Sanders, the clinic's senior IT administrator. Marcus watched as Ryan unlocked the warehouse door. Both men disappeared inside, carrying the equipment case. No one emerged for nearly 90 minutes. Marcus never moved. When Ryan finally left, the aluminum case was gone. Michael departed separately 20 minutes later. Marcus waited another half hour before approaching the building. The warehouse appeared abandoned. Dust covered the loading docks. Several windows had been painted black from inside. No company signs, no delivery trucks. Nothing suggested active business, yet fresh tire tracks covered the concrete entrance. Marcus photographed everything before leaving. Within an hour, Laura, Benjamin, and Christian gathered inside Benjamin's office. Marcus placed the surveillance photographs across the conference table. Christian stared at Michael Sanders' face. The clinic. Marcus nodded. The clinic and Whitmore are connected. Laura remained unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. If Ryan Whitmore and the hospital's IT administrator are meeting secretly, she paused. Then this investigation is no longer just about stolen money. Benjamin looked toward her. What are you thinking? Laura answered slowly. I think someone built an entire network. She pointed at the photographs. Financial fraud. Medical record manipulation. Identity forgery. Evidence destruction? They're all connected. Christian looked once more at Michael Sanders carrying the locked equipment case into the warehouse. Then his eyes settled on one detail almost everyone else overlooked. The equipment case bore a faded shipping label. Only 3 words remained readable. Property of Brooks Digital Imaging. Christian looked up at Ethan. Ethan, Have you ever heard of Brooks Digital Imaging? Ethan's face suddenly lost all color. Yes, everyone turned toward him. He swallowed once. They shut down 6 years ago. Laura frowned. I thought so too. Ethan stared at the photograph. The problem is, Brooks Digital Imaging wasn't a photography company. It specialized in recovering deleted electronic evidence. Ethan Brooks rarely reacted emotionally to evidence. Years spent recovering deleted files from damaged hard drives, encrypted servers, and burned computers had taught him to remain skeptical of coincidence. Digital evidence either existed or it didn't. Feelings never changed the outcome, yet the faded shipping label in Marcus Bennett's photograph unsettled him. Brooks Digital Imaging had once been one of the Midwest's most respected forensic recovery laboratories. It did not restore family photographs. It did not repair office computers. Federal agencies, law firms, hospitals, and insurance companies hired the firm whenever critical electronic evidence had to be recovered without compromising its legal integrity. Ethan had worked there for 4 years before the company unexpectedly closed. No bankruptcy. No public scandal. 1 week the laboratory operated normally. The next week every employee received severance packages. The building was emptied within days. At the time, Ethan assumed the owners had quietly retired. Now he wasn't so certain. Laura Mitchell noticed the change in his expression. You know something? Ethan nodded slowly. I know enough to be concerned. Benjamin leaned forward. Start from the beginning. Ethan folded his hands together before speaking. Brooks Digital Imaging specialized in recovering deleted information, not deleting it. The company built custom forensic equipment that could restore files most people believed were permanently erased. Marcus looked toward the warehouse photograph. So, why would one of those cases appear in Whitmore's possession? I don't know. But I do know those cases weren't sold commercially. Everyone looked at him. They were custom built. There were fewer than 20 in existence. Laura immediately asked the obvious question. Can we identify the serial number? Marcus zoomed into the high-resolution photograph on his tablet. The image remained slightly blurred. Still, several characters became readable. Ethan stared silently, then reached for a notebook. He wrote 6 numbers, compared them with something stored on his phone. Finally, he looked up. I think that's case number 9. What does that mean? Christian asked. It belonged to our founder. The room became quiet. Benjamin broke the silence. Who was your founder? Dr. Alan Brooks. Is he still alive? Ethan nodded. As far as I know. He retired after closing the company. Laura made another note. I want to talk to him. By late afternoon, Marcus had already located Dr. Brooks's current address. He lived alone on a quiet property outside Granville, Ohio. Retirement appeared to suit him. The 72-year-old spent most mornings tending fruit trees and restoring antique radios inside a converted barn. When Laura, Ethan, Benjamin, and Marcus arrived, Dr. Brooks welcomed them politely, but seemed puzzled by their visit. Only after Ethan mentioned the equipment case did the older man's expression change. You're certain you saw one? Marcus placed several enlarged photographs across the kitchen table. Dr. Brooks adjusted his glasses. His hands remained perfectly steady until he reached the final image. Then he stopped. That's mine. Laura looked at him. You're certain? I engraved every case personally. He pointed toward a barely visible scratch beside the handle. That's my identification mark. Ethan leaned closer. I remember that. Dr. Brooks nodded. Nobody else would. Laura asked carefully, how did someone outside your company obtain it? The older man hesitated. I don't know. When we closed, every forensic recovery unit was supposed to be destroyed. Supposed to be... Dr. Brooks sighed. There was one shipment. What shipment? The equipment disappeared before inventory was completed. Marcus looked up. You reported it? Yes. No one ever found it. Laura exchanged a glance with Benjamin. When did this happen? Dr. Brooks thought for a moment. About 6 years ago. Ethan quietly calculated the timeline. That's approximately when Whitmore urban development began expanding. Nobody spoke. The coincidence felt increasingly unlikely. Dr. Brooks stood and walked toward an old filing cabinet. After several minutes, he returned, carrying a weathered storage box. I never expected anyone to ask about this again. Inside rested copies of insurance reports, inventory lists, and correspondence with local police. Laura reviewed every page. One document immediately caught her attention. The theft report listed estimated replacement values for each missing forensic recovery unit. There had not been one stolen case. There had been 8. Marcus looked at the inventory. Case numbers 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 14, 15, 19, all gone. Christian studied the report quietly. Someone had stolen equipment specifically designed to recover deleted digital evidence. Yet somehow that equipment had ended up inside a warehouse connected to a financial fraud investigation. His thoughts moved in only one direction. If people possessed tools capable of recovering deleted information, they also understood exactly how to destroy it. Laura requested copies of every document. Before leaving, she asked Dr. Brooks one final question. If someone wanted to permanently erase evidence using those systems, the older man interrupted. They couldn't. Everyone looked at him. Dr. Brooks smiled faintly. That's the irony? Our equipment recovered evidence. It never truly destroyed it. Laura frowned. So, why steal it? Dr. Brooks answered almost immediately. Because people who understand recovery also understand concealment. You don't erase evidence. You hide it somewhere nobody thinks to search. The statement lingered in Christian's mind throughout the drive back to Columbus. Hide it, not erase it. That evening, Ethan returned to the FBI laboratory carrying copies of Brooks Digital Imaging's technical manuals. Most agents considered them outdated. Ethan viewed them differently. Sometimes old technology revealed modern mistakes. For nearly 6 uninterrupted hours, he compared the architecture of Brooks' recovery systems with the hospital servers. Around 1:30 in the morning, he suddenly stopped typing. Something impossible had appeared. He called Laura immediately. You need to come here. She arrived 20 minutes later. Ethan enlarged a complicated network diagram across 3 monitors. Look at the backup routing. Laura examined the screen. I don't understand. The hospital backups weren't deleted. She looked at him. They were redirected. Redirected where? Ethan highlighted another server path. Instead of writing deleted information into the standard archive, someone redirected every backup into an external storage location. Laura stared silently. So the audit logs still exist. If I'm right, they were never destroyed. They were stolen. Laura immediately contacted Marcus. Within an hour, the investigative team gathered again. Ethan explained his theory step by step. Hospitals automatically generated redundant backup files. Those backups normally remained inside secure storage. However, someone with administrator privileges could quietly redirect them elsewhere without ordinary employees noticing. Christian asked the question everyone wanted answered. Can you find the destination? Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe. But I need another piece of information. What? The warehouse, Marcus frowned. What about it? I need to know whether it contains independent internet service. Marcus immediately checked public utility records. Several minutes later, he looked up. It does. Laura leaned forward. Registered to whom? Marcus answered. Not Whitmore Urban Development. Then who? Marcus rotated the tablet toward everyone. The registered customer name read Midwest Infrastructure Consulting, the same shell company that had received millions of dollars in fraudulent engineering payments. Benjamin exhaled quietly. They're using shell companies for everything. Laura stood. No. They're using shell companies as infrastructure. She turned toward Marcus. I want legal surveillance around that warehouse 24 hours a day. Marcus nodded. It starts tonight. Laura faced Ethan. I want you preparing a recovery operation. If those stolen backups exist, we're getting them. Christian remained silent while everyone discussed logistics. His attention stayed fixed on a different detail. The warehouse. Ryan Whitmore, Michael Sanders, Brooks Digital Imaging. Everything connected through carefully hidden systems. Exactly like concealed load-bearing supports inside a bridge. People admired the visible structure. Almost nobody thought about the framework hidden beneath it. His phone vibrated. A message from Ariana. Don't forget, anniversary dinner next Saturday. I have a surprise you'll never forget. Christian stared at the message, then slowly locked the screen. Across the conference table, Laura noticed the change in his expression. Everything okay? Christian placed the phone back into his pocket. Our anniversary is next week. Benjamin understood immediately. The same dinner. Christian nodded. The one where Ariana plans to announce... He stopped before finishing the sentence. Laura looked around the room. Then our timetable just changed. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? Laura answered quietly. If they're planning something for that night. We have exactly 1 week to learn why. The final week before the anniversary dinner unfolded with deceptive normality. To everyone outside the investigation, life continued exactly as expected. Construction crews poured concrete across central Ohio. Buckeye Structural Engineering submitted project reports. Ryan Whitmore attended charity breakfasts and economic development meetings. Ariana continued planning the anniversary celebration with remarkable enthusiasm. Only a handful of people understood that every ordinary day narrowed the window for uncovering the truth. Christian maintained his routine with almost mechanical precision. He arrived at work before sunrise, reviewed engineering calculations, visited construction sites, shared brief conversations with coworkers. Every evening he returned home at nearly the same time. Nothing about his behavior suggested that federal investigators, forensic accountants, and private investigators were quietly assembling a criminal case connected to his own marriage. That consistency became his greatest advantage. No one suspected he already knew far more than he admitted. On Wednesday morning, Laura Mitchell received the first significant breakthrough since discovering the missing hospital backups. Ethan Brooks had located the destination server. It wasn't inside the warehouse. It wasn't even inside Ohio. The redirected hospital archives had been transmitted through multiple encrypted relays before reaching a commercial data center in Northern Virginia. The facility itself was legitimate. Thousands of businesses rented server space there. The difficulty lay in identifying which customer leased the specific hardware. Federal subpoenas were already in motion. Time, however, remained painfully limited. Laura gathered the team inside the FBI field office. Ethan projected a network map onto the conference room wall. Colored lines connected hospitals, shell companies, cloud storage providers, and the mysterious Virginia server. Marcus studied the display. That's a complicated route. Ethan nodded. It was designed that way. Every relay disguises the previous connection. Christian quietly observed the diagram. The layout reminded him of structural load distribution. No single support carried the entire weight. Instead, dozens of smaller supports concealed the true direction of force. Someone had built the digital network using exactly the same principle. Benjamin noticed Christian's expression. What are you thinking? Christian pointed toward the center of the diagram. You're following the data. Laura looked at him. Yes. What should we follow? Christian answered almost immediately. The decision maker. Everyone fell silent. He continued. Money. Medical records. Servers. Shell companies. Their tools. The important question isn't where they go. It's who tells them where to go. Marcus slowly nodded. Command structure. Christian agreed. In every engineering project, hundreds of workers perform different jobs, but only a few people approve major decisions. If we identify whoever authorizes everything, the entire structure collapses. Laura smiled faintly. That's exactly why I wanted you here. Within hours, the investigative strategy shifted. Instead of pursuing every individual connection, agents focused on identifying people appearing repeatedly across unrelated records, financial authorizations, medical access, corporate filings, property ownership, electronic signatures. The resulting list proved surprisingly short. Ryan Whitmore, Michael Sanders, 2 corporate attorneys, 1 financial consultant, and a name no one recognized. Evelyn Shaw. No employee profile. No professional license. No public interviews. Only her name appearing quietly beside dozens of legal authorization forms. Marcus immediately began researching her. The results made little sense. Driver's license, property taxes, voting registration, everything appeared perfectly normal. Almost too normal. He dug deeper. Social Security records indicated Evelyn had lived continuously in Ohio for 23 years. Employment records, however, showed almost no traditional income. Yet she owned 2 expensive properties without mortgages. Benjamin examined the financial summaries. Someone's paying her, Marcus agreed. We just don't know who. Meanwhile, Christian faced a different challenge. Nathan unexpectedly invited him to lunch. The brothers met at a familiar barbecue restaurant they had visited since childhood. Nathan immediately noticed Christian seemed distracted. You've been somewhere else lately. Christian smiled politely. Busy. Nathan laughed. That's not what Mom says. Christian raised an eyebrow. What does she say? She thinks you're carrying the entire world on your shoulders. Christian looked down at his coffee. I'll be fine. Nathan studied him carefully. You know, when Dad got sick, you said exactly the same thing. Christian remembered. Their father had insisted everything remained under control until the day doctors admitted him into intensive care. Nathan leaned forward. You don't have to solve every problem alone. Christian appreciated the concern, more than Nathan there. Nathan leaned forward. You don't have to solve every problem alone. Christian appreciated the concern, more than Nathan realized, but involving family now would only place them in unnecessary danger. I promise, Christian said quietly, when I can talk about it. I will. Nathan accepted the answer. Mostly. Before leaving, he placed one hand on Christian's shoulder. No matter what happens Saturday, I'm there. Christian looked at him. What makes you mention Saturday? Nathan smiled. Your anniversary. I know, Ariana. She's planning something huge. Christian forced a small smile. She usually does. Driving back to work, Christian considered Nathan's words. Saturday. Only 3 days remained. That evening, Ariana transformed the dining room into a planning center. Guest lists, floral arrangements, wine selections, seating charts. She moved happily between stacks of invitations while soft music filled the house. Christian helped fold place cards without asking unnecessary questions. At one point, Ariana stopped working and looked at him. You've been incredible. Christian looked up. What do you mean? You never complain. You trust me. You let me handle everything. She smiled warmly. I really hope Saturday changes our lives forever. Christian met her eyes. I think it will. For a brief second, something flickered across her expression. Not guilt, not fear, almost relief. Then it disappeared. Much later that night, after Ariana had gone upstairs, Christian remained alone in the living room. He replayed every conversation from the previous several weeks, every unexplained meeting, every anonymous document, every forged signature. His mind kept returning to one unanswered question. Why announce the pregnancy publicly? If deception were the goal, private lies would be safer. Public announcements created witnesses. Witnesses created risk. There had to be another reason. The next morning he shared the thought with Benjamin. Benjamin listened carefully. I've wondered the same thing. Laura joined the conversation. If someone chooses a public setting, they're expecting the audience to matter. Christian nodded. Exactly. Marcus opened the guest list Ariana had unknowingly provided through the catering company. Nearly 60 attendees, family, friends, business associates, several Buckeye structural engineering executives, Ryan Whitmore. The room became silent. Laura immediately looked up. Ryan's attending. Benjamin examined the printed list. He is. Christian slowly leaned back. I've never met him. Marcus looked puzzled. Then why invite him? Nobody answered, because nobody knew, until Ethan quietly spoke from the far end of the table. Maybe. Everyone turned. Ryan isn't attending because of Ariana. Laura frowned. What do you mean? Ethan pointed toward another name, David Reynolds, Buckeye's chief financial officer. Then another. 2 members of the company's board of directors. Another. Outside legal counsel. One by one, the significance became obvious. The guest list contained almost every senior executive capable of approving future commercial contracts with Whitmore Urban Development. Christian understood first. The dinner isn't only personal. Benjamin nodded slowly. It's networking. Marcus corrected him. No. He looked at the list again. It's positioning. Laura finally reached the same conclusion. If Ariana announces a pregnancy, every executive congratulates Christian. Every relationship becomes stronger. Trust increases. Benjamin finished the thought. And no one questions future business decisions involving Whitmore. Christian stared quietly at the list. The pregnancy announcement suddenly looked less like family news and more like strategic timing. If true, the deception extended far beyond their marriage. Laura closed the folder. Then Saturday isn't simply an anniversary. She looked directly at Christian. It's the centerpiece of whatever they've been building. Her phone vibrated. An incoming secure message from the Virginia data center. She opened it immediately. The subpoena response had arrived. The leased server storing the stolen hospital backups was registered under a corporate customer. Not Midwest Infrastructure Consulting, not Whitmore Urban Development. The account holder's name appeared on the screen. Laura read it once, then again. Without speaking, she slowly rotated the phone toward the others. The registered customer was Shaw Strategic Holdings, authorized representative Evelyn Shaw. Laura Mitchell had spent nearly 15 years investigating organized financial crime. Drug trafficking organizations laundered money. Corporate executives falsified accounting records. Public officials accepted bribes disguised as consulting fees. Every major investigation eventually revealed one person whose name almost never appeared in public. The strategist. Evelyn Shaw fit that pattern perfectly. She owned no billion-dollar corporation. She attended no charity galas. She gave no interviews. Yet somehow her company leased the secure servers storing stolen medical backups. That alone justified immediate attention. Within hours, federal analysts assembled everything they could legally obtain. The results were unsettling. Shaw Strategic Holdings officially described itself as a business process consulting firm. The company employed only 4 people. Annual reported revenue remained modest. Its office occupied a small suite inside an ordinary suburban office park west of Columbus. Nothing about it suggested sophisticated cyber operations. Laura recognized the illusion immediately. Front companies rarely attracted attention by looking successful. They survived by appearing forgettable. Marcus drove past the office shortly after lunch. A faded directory sign listed dentists, insurance brokers, tax consultants, and Shaw Strategic Holdings on the second floor. Employees entered carrying coffee cups. Delivery drivers unloaded printer paper. Everything appeared routine. Too routine. Marcus photographed every entrance before returning to his vehicle. He remained there until evening. Almost everyone left by 6 o'clock. Only one office stayed illuminated. Shaw Strategic Holdings. At 8:17 p.m., a dark blue sedan entered the parking lot. Marcus raised his camera. The driver stepped out. Female, mid-50s, gray business suit, simple leather briefcase. No jewelry except a wedding band. She unlocked the office herself. Marcus compared her face with the driver's license photograph provided by federal databases. Match confirmed. Evelyn Shaw. Instead of entering immediately, she paused beside the building entrance and looked carefully across the parking lot. Left. Right. Up toward the rooftops. Marcus lowered his camera instinctively. Not because she had seen him, because she behaved exactly like someone trained to detect surveillance. Only after nearly 30 seconds did she unlock the door. Marcus documented the time. She remained inside for almost 90 minutes. No visitors arrived. No lights switched off. Finally, she exited carrying a cardboard storage box. Not especially large. Heavy enough that she used both hands. Marcus photographed every step. Evelyn placed the box into her trunk before driving away. Marcus followed at a safe distance. She did not drive home. Instead, she headed toward the same industrial district containing Whitmore's warehouse. Traffic remained light. The distance between vehicles stayed consistent. At 9:56 p.m., Evelyn entered the warehouse property. The rolling security gate opened automatically. Marcus stopped nearly 200 yards away. This time the warehouse looked different. Lights glowed behind the blacked-out windows. Several delivery vans stood beside the loading docks. He counted 6 vehicles. None displayed company logos. Within minutes, another familiar car arrived. Ryan Whitmore. 5 minutes later, Michael Sanders. Marcus quietly photographed every arrival. Then something unexpected happened. Ariana's white Lexus slowly entered through the same gate. Marcus stared at the camera screen. He checked the license plate twice. There was no mistake. Ariana had never previously visited the warehouse. He immediately called Laura. She answered on the second ring. "What do you have?" Marcus spoke calmly despite the surprise. "Everyone's here?" "Who?" "Whitmore." "Sanders." "Evelyn Shaw." He paused briefly. "And Ariana." Silence. Laura finally asked, "Can you see inside?" "No." "But this isn't a casual meeting." Everyone arrived separately. No one left. Laura considered the situation. "We're not ready to move." Marcus understood. Without warrants covering the warehouse interior, entering now could destroy the entire investigation. "Keep watching." "I will." Meanwhile, Christian sat alone inside his home office. The house felt unusually quiet. Ariana had texted earlier that she needed to finalize decorations with Melissa before Saturday's anniversary celebration. Christian accepted the explanation without comment. He had already learned that verifying mattered more than questioning. His phone vibrated. "Marcus." Christian answered immediately. "I've located Ariana." Christian remained silent. She's at the warehouse. A long pause followed. When? Now. Christian closed his eyes for only a moment. His heartbeat remained steady. Who else? Marcus listed the names. Ryan, Michael, Evelyn. Christian slowly opened a notebook lying beside his desk. Without speaking, he wrote each name, then drew connecting lines between them. One detail suddenly stood out. Every confirmed participant represented a different specialty. Ryan, business development. Michael, technology. Evelyn, corporate organization. Ariana, public relationships. Christian frowned. Something remained missing. Benjamin answered when Christian called. What happened? Christian summarized Marcus's report. Benjamin listened carefully, then asked, Who isn't there? Christian blinked. What? Don't think about who attended. Think about who's missing. Christian looked at the notebook again. Ryan, Michael, Evelyn, Ariana. Then he realized. David Reynolds, Laura Mitchell. Marcus, no. Benjamin meant someone else. He reviewed every major discovery, medical records, financial fraud, digital evidence, shell companies. Then one name emerged. Dr. Emily Foster. The clinic compliance director. Why wasn't she involved? If the conspiracy had penetrated the reproductive clinic, someone inside had to protect its interests. Unless she wasn't protecting them. She was exposing them. Christian's thoughts accelerated. He immediately called Laura. I think Emily's in danger. Laura did not ask why. Explain. If everyone connected to the conspiracy is meeting tonight, then the only insider helping us isn't there. Laura understood instantly. Stay where you are. She disconnected. Within minutes, FBI agents attempted to contact Dr. Foster. No answer. Her office, closed. Home phone, no response. Cell phone, voicemail. Laura dispatched agents immediately. 23 minutes later, the first patrol vehicle reached Dr. Foster's home. The front door stood slightly open. No signs of forced entry. Inside furniture remained untouched. Wallet, purse, laptop. Everything appeared normal. Except Dr. Foster was gone. A neighbor reported seeing a black cargo van leaving the street less than an hour earlier. No company markings, no license plate remembered. Laura's investigation had just changed again. Back at the warehouse, Marcus continued watching. At 11:08 p.m., the large loading door slowly opened. He adjusted the camera. Workers carried several sealed storage cases toward a delivery truck. Most resembled ordinary office equipment. One case immediately caught his attention. Bright orange evidence tape. Federal property label. Marcus zoomed in. His pulse quickened. The label identified the container as property previously belonging to the Columbus Center for Reproductive Medicine. Hospital evidence, removed from this warehouse. He photographed everything. Then another figure appeared beneath the loading lights. Ryan Whitmore stood beside the truck speaking with Ariana. Marcus could not hear their conversation. He relied entirely on body language. Ryan handed Ariana a white envelope. She accepted it without hesitation. Then she removed a folded document from her portfolio. Ryan read the first page, nodded once, returned it. No embrace, no affection, business, pure business. Marcus documented every second. Suddenly, another vehicle approached from the opposite direction. Not one of theirs. A black SUV, government issue. Laura had arrived. She parked well outside the property and quietly joined Marcus inside the surveillance vehicle. He showed her the photographs. Laura studied them carefully. No physical relationship. Marcus nodded. I've never seen one. Laura continued watching the warehouse through binoculars. They're coordinating something. Marcus looked toward Ariana. The question is, what role does she actually play? Laura didn't answer immediately. Instead, she watched Ariana climb into her Lexus. The envelope Ryan had given her rested on the passenger seat. As Ariana drove away, Laura lowered the binoculars. "We follow her." Marcus started the engine. 2 vehicles quietly pulled away from the warehouse. 3 miles later, Ariana stopped at a red light near downtown Columbus. For the first time all evening, she looked exhausted. She rested both hands on the steering wheel. Then, she unexpectedly began crying. Not dramatically, not uncontrollably. Silent tears rolled down her face while she waited for the traffic signal to change. Marcus glanced toward Laura. Neither spoke. When the light turned green, Ariana wiped her eyes, straightened her posture, and drove home. Neither investigator understood what they had just witnessed, but both knew one thing. Whatever role Ariana played in the conspiracy, the truth was far more complicated than they had first believed. Christian barely slept. Not because of Marcus's report. Not because Ariana had been seen leaving the warehouse. Not even because Dr. Emily Foster had disappeared. His mind refused to let go of a single image, Ariana crying alone at the traffic light. It contradicted everything he believed he understood. If she were willingly participating in a criminal conspiracy, why cry when nobody could see her? He replayed the sequence repeatedly. Ryan handed her the white envelope. They exchanged documents. She drove away, then alone. The tears. His instincts warned him against drawing conclusions from emotion. Facts first, always facts. Still, something about the moment felt genuine. Friday morning began with another emergency meeting at the FBI field office. Laura Mitchell addressed the group without wasting a second. "We have 2 priorities." She wrote them on the whiteboard. Locate Dr. Emily Foster. Identify Evelyn Shaw. Everything else became secondary. Federal agents had already begun interviewing neighbors near Dr. Foster's home. One retired postal worker remembered something unusual. Around 7:30 Wednesday evening, a woman had argued quietly with Dr. Foster beside her driveway. The witness could not hear the conversation, only fragments. The older man remembered one sentence clearly. "You still have time to walk away." Laura underlined the statement in her notebook. Who said it? The witness wasn't certain. It was the woman. Dr. Foster looked frightened. Marcus immediately requested nearby traffic camera footage. Hours later, the images arrived. Although grainy, one frame clearly captured the visitor's face. Evelyn Shaw. Laura studied this timestamp. 42 minutes before Dr. Foster disappeared. The investigation accelerated immediately. Meanwhile, Ethan Brooks received access to the Virginia data servers. The provider had fully cooperated after receiving federal warrants. Hundreds of encrypted storage containers appeared on the leased hardware. Breaking the encryption would require time. Unfortunately, time had almost disappeared. Saturday's anniversary dinner would begin in less than 24 hours. Ethan isolated one archive that looked different from the others. Unlike the remaining encrypted containers, this one carried an internal description. Legacy Recovery. The phrase caught his attention. He opened Brooks Digital Imaging's archived technical manuals. Several pages later, he found the same terminology. Legacy Recovery referred to backup images created by Brooks Forensic Equipment, the equipment stolen 6 years earlier. His pulse quickened. If the warehouse still contained those systems, the Virginia server might hold copies of everything ever recovered. Deleted emails, hospital logs, financial records, possibly years of hidden evidence. He called Laura immediately. "If I'm right, the server isn't just storage. It's insurance." Laura understood. "In case someone destroys the originals." "Exactly." She looked toward Benjamin. "They've been protecting themselves." Benjamin nodded. "And documenting everyone?" Christian remained unusually quiet throughout the discussion. His attention had shifted elsewhere. The white envelope Ryan had handed Ariana. Nobody knew what it contained. Yet it had reduced her to silent tears minutes later. Benjamin eventually noticed. "You've barely spoken," Christian answered honestly. I'm trying to understand motivation. Laura looked at him. For whom? Ariana. Marcus folded his arms. We've documented repeated secret meetings. Christian nodded. Yes. We've documented document exchanges. Yes. She attended the warehouse. Yes. Christian paused. But I still don't know why. Nobody answered. Because nobody could. At noon, Marcus received another surveillance assignment. This time not Ariana. Evelyn Shaw. She left her office shortly after lunch and drove directly toward downtown Columbus. Marcus maintained a careful distance. She parked outside a quiet coffee shop. 5 minutes later, another woman arrived. Melissa Carter, Christian's longtime family friend. Marcus blinked. He checked the photograph twice. There was no mistake. Melissa entered the cafe carrying a large envelope. She greeted Evelyn politely. No embrace, no visible familiarity. Business. Marcus photographed every page exchanged across the table. 38 minutes later, the meeting ended. Melissa left smiling. Evelyn remained seated another 10 minutes before shredding several handwritten notes inside a portable document shredder she had brought with her. Marcus immediately called Laura. Melissa Carter just met Evelyn Shaw. Laura frowned. Are you certain? I have photographs. Christian happened to be sitting beside Laura when the call came. His expression remained calm. Inside, however, another carefully built assumption collapsed. Melissa had introduced Ariana to him years ago. She had attended holidays, birthday dinners, family celebrations. If she somehow connected to Evelyn Shaw. The timeline extended much further than Christian imagined. Laura asked quietly, Do we bring Melissa in? Benjamin answered before anyone else. No. Not today. Tomorrow changes everything. Laura agreed reluctantly. We stay invisible. By late afternoon, preparations for the anniversary dinner occupied nearly every room inside Christian's house. Florists delivered arrangements. Caterers inspected the kitchen. Rental staff arranged tables beneath elegant white tents covering the backyard. Professional lighting transformed the garden into something resembling a luxury wedding reception. Christian greeted every worker with the same calm politeness. No one suspected anything unusual. Ariana moved gracefully from vendor to vendor, smiling constantly. Watching her work, Christian understood why everyone trusted her so easily. She anticipated problems before they occurred, remembered names, thanked every employee personally. Nothing about her behavior suggested hidden meetings or federal investigations. That contradiction disturbed him more than any evidence. Late that evening, after the final contractor departed, Ariana found Christian standing alone on the back patio. The backyard looked beautiful beneath hundreds of suspended lights. She slipped her hand into his. Nervous? Christian smiled faintly. A little. So am I. They stood together in silence. Finally, Ariana spoke. I know I've kept a lot of surprises from you. Christian felt his heartbeat slow. I've noticed. She laughed softly. I promise. After tomorrow, you'll understand everything. The words echoed inside his mind. Understand everything. Not forgive, not celebrate, understand. He looked toward her. For the first time in weeks, he wanted to ask every question. The warehouse, Ryan, the pregnancy, the envelope. Instead, he remained silent. Because Benjamin's instructions still mattered. No confrontation. Not yet. Saturday morning arrived beneath clear Ohio skies. Guests would begin arriving shortly after 6 o'clock. Christian woke before sunrise. The house remained quiet. He walked through every room checking small details, not because he cared about decorations, because routine helped him think. At 7:30, his phone vibrated. Laura. We found Dr. Foster. Christian stopped walking. Is she alive? A brief pause. Yes. Relief washed through him. Where was she? In a private medical cabin outside Newark. Christian frowned. Kidnapped? We don't know yet. What did she say? Laura's voice became unusually serious. She refuses to talk over the phone. She insists on telling us everything in person. Everything about what? Another pause. About Ariana. Christian felt the world narrow. Laura continued, We're meeting her now. If what she says is true, tonight's anniversary dinner isn't simply the end of an investigation. Christian waited. Laura finished quietly. It's the deadline someone has been trying to stop. The line disconnected. Christian remained standing alone in the silent hallway. Upstairs, he heard Ariana humming softly while getting ready for the day. Outside, delivery trucks arrived with the final decorations. Inside his pocket rested the sealed envelope containing proof that he could never father a child. Across Ohio, federal agents raced toward a witness who claimed to know the truth. And in less than 12 hours, 60 guests would gather to celebrate a marriage that by morning might no longer exist. Laura Mitchell arrived at the secure medical cabin shortly after 8 o'clock that Saturday morning. The building belonged to a private physician who occasionally assisted federal agencies by providing discreet medical examinations for protected witnesses. From the outside, it resembled an ordinary lakeside retreat. Inside, however, 2 FBI agents guarded every entrance. Dr. Emily Foster sat quietly beside a window overlooking the water. She looked physically exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a cup of untouched tea. Benjamin Hayes and Ethan Brooks arrived moments after Laura. No one interrupted the silence. Dr. Foster finally looked up. You found me. Laura pulled out a chair. We're glad you're alive. Emily lowered her eyes. I wasn't kidnapped. That answer surprised everyone. Laura remained calm. Then why disappear? Emily hesitated for several seconds. Because someone warned me. Benjamin spoke carefully. Who? I don't know. I received an anonymous message. What did it say? Emily reached into her purse and removed a folded piece of paper sealed inside an evidence bag. Laura read the typed sentence. If you tell the FBI before Saturday night, innocent people will die. No signature, no fingerprints, no return address, only printed letters cut from magazines. Benjamin asked quietly, Why didn't you come to us immediately? Emily closed her eyes. Because 24 hours later, someone parked outside my house. They stayed there all night. The next morning, I found another note on my windshield. She handed Laura a second evidence bag. This one contained only 6 words. We know where your daughter lives. The room became completely silent. Laura immediately understood. Emily had not vanished because she feared for herself. She disappeared to protect her family. Where's your daughter now? Laura asked. Federal agents moved her yesterday. Laura nodded. She's safe. For the first time since entering the room, Emily seemed able to breathe normally. Benjamin leaned forward. You said you know something about Ariana. Emily looked toward Christian's empty chair. He isn't here? Laura answered. No. Not yet. Emily nodded. That's probably better. She gathered herself before speaking again. I need you to understand something. Ariana Cooper never came to our clinic asking how to fake a pregnancy. Laura's eyes narrowed. What did she ask? Emily answered slowly. She wanted proof. Proof of what? That Christian could never have biological children. Benjamin frowned. You're certain? I met with her personally. The statement changed the entire room. Laura glanced toward Benjamin. Neither interrupted. Emily continued. She arrived almost 8 months ago. She already suspected Christian had hidden his infertility from her. Laura asked, "Did he hide it?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know. I only know what she told me." She said she accidentally discovered old medical insurance paperwork. She wanted confirmation before confronting him. Laura carefully chose her next question. "Did your clinic provide that confirmation?" "No," Emily answered immediately. "We couldn't. Christian had never been our patient." She reached for an answer folder. "Instead, I explained that obtaining confidential medical records without authorization would be illegal." Laura looked up. "So, Ariana left." Emily nodded. "I assumed that was the end." It wasn't. 3 weeks later, Emily received another appointment request. This time, Ariana arrived with Ryan Whitmore. Laura wrote the name immediately. Emily continued. Ryan introduced himself as a business consultant. He claimed Christian had already authorized release of older medical records. Benjamin interrupted. "Did he provide authorization?" Emily opened another document. "He did." She placed a photocopy on the table. Christian's signature appeared at the bottom. Laura examined it closely. "Forgery." Emily nodded. "I believed so too." So I refused again. Ethan asked, "What happened after that?" Emily sighed. 2 weeks later. "Someone accessed our internal records anyway." Laura exchanged a glance with Ethan. "Michael Sanders." Emily continued. "I reported the unauthorized access. My complaint disappeared. I filed another. It disappeared too." Benjamin leaned forward. "Who received your complaints?" Emily answered without hesitation. "The hospital executive board." "Did anyone respond?" "Only once." "What did they say?" Emily looked towards the window. "They told me the investigation had already been completed. There was nothing to worry about." Laura knew institutional cover-ups when she heard Wade 1. "What did you do?" "I started making copies." Ethan immediately became interested. "Copies of what?" "Everything." Emily stood and retrieved another sealed envelope from her bag. Inside rested printed screenshots, access logs, internal emails, system notifications, approval requests. She slid one page toward Ethan. "I never trusted our digital archive, so I photographed everything." Ethan examined the timestamps. His breathing slowed. "You still have these?" Emily nodded. I kept them outside the hospital." Laura immediately realized their importance. If the electronic logs were redirected, these photographs established the original timeline. Emily smiled weakly. "That's why someone wanted them," Benjamin asked quietly. "Did they get them?" "No. They searched my office. They searched my house. But they never found the originals." Laura carefully sealed every page into federal evidence bags. Then she asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "What about the pregnancy?" Emily looked genuinely confused. "What pregnancy?" "Ariana announced she's expecting." Emily stared silently, then slowly shook her head. "That's impossible." Laura waited. Emily continued. "I never treated Ariana for pregnancy. We performed no prenatal testing, no ultrasound, no laboratory confirmation." Benjamin frowned. "Could she have gone elsewhere?" Emily nodded. "Of course. But if she had..." Emily hesitated. "She wouldn't have needed forged fertility records." The contradiction settled heavily over the room. Laura finally called Christian. He answered immediately. "Did she talk?" "Yes." "Can you come?" "I'll leave now." 45 minutes later, Christian entered the cabin. Emily stood awkwardly. "I'm sorry." Christian looked puzzled. "For what? I should have contacted you months ago." Christian remained composed. "You believed you were following the law." She nodded. "I did." Laura summarized everything Emily had revealed. Christian listened without interrupting. When she finished, he remained silent for nearly a minute. Finally, he spoke. "So, Ariana believed I lied?" Emily answered quietly. "That's what she told me." Christian looked down. He remembered the accident years earlier, the surgeries, the specialists, the painful conversation informing him that biological children were almost certainly impossible. He had never hidden it intentionally. He simply stopped talking about it after Ariana repeatedly insisted she loved him regardless. He had believed the subject belonged in the past. Apparently, it hadn't. Benjamin interrupted his thoughts. "Christian." He looked up. "If Emily is telling the truth, someone manipulated Ariana before manipulating you." Christian nodded slowly. "Ryan," Laura answered carefully. "Possibly. We still don't know." Christian's thoughts drifted back to Ariana's tears at the traffic light, then to her words the previous evening. "After tomorrow, you'll understand everything." Perhaps she had been trying to tell him something all along. His phone suddenly vibrated. A text message from Ariana. "Where are you? The caterers need you for a tasting before the guests arrive." Christian typed only 3 words. "I'll be home." He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Laura closed the evidence folder. "We're out of time." Benjamin nodded. "The dinner begins in a few hours." Christian looked around the room. "For weeks we've chased evidence." He took a slow breath. "Tonight." We finally learn who expected that announcement to happen. No one disagreed. Because by sunset, every hidden relationship, every forged document, every stolen record, and every carefully constructed lie would converge beneath the lights of one anniversary celebration. And somewhere among the arriving guests, the person who had orchestrated everything would be waiting. Christian reached home shortly after noon. The property no longer looked like a private residence. Luxury sedans from catering companies lined the street. Florists carried towering arrangements of white orchids through the front entrance. Technicians tested hidden speakers beneath the backyard tents. Everywhere he looked, people prepared for celebration. The contrast felt almost surreal. Only a few miles away, the FBI was assembling evidence that could dismantle an entire criminal network. Here, waiters polished crystal glasses. Ariana stood near the dining room directing the placement of a long anniversary display featuring framed photographs from their marriage. When she noticed Christian, her smile appeared immediate and effortless. "There you are." "I was beginning to worry." Christian walked toward her calmly. "Everything under control." She laughed. "I hope so." She adjusted a photograph from their honeymoon before looking back at him. "Can you help me with one thing?" "Of course." She handed him a small velvet box. Inside rested 2 new wedding bands. Christian looked at them quietly. "I thought we already had rings." "We do," she smiled. "Tonight I wanted to renew our vows." Christian slowly closed the box. Another surprise, another carefully planned moment. His thoughts drifted back to Laura's words. Tonight's anniversary isn't simply the end of an investigation. It's the deadline someone has been trying to stop. He slipped the velvet box into his pocket. "They're beautiful." Ariana's expression softened. "I wanted tonight to be unforgettable." Christian answered honestly. "I think it will be." For a brief moment, neither spoke. He noticed how tired she looked beneath expertly applied makeup. She smiled often, but her eyes carried the same exhaustion Marcus had observed at the traffic light. Before Christian could think further, Melissa Carter entered carrying several folders. "There you are." She hugged Ariana warmly before turning toward Christian. "You clean up nicely." Christian smiled politely. "Thank you." Melissa held up a clipboard. "Just one last seating confirmation." She reviewed names one by one. Christian quietly observed. Ryan Whitmore would sit at table 3, David Reynolds at table 1, Nathan and Linda Cooper near the center. Benjamin Hayes appeared on the guest list as Christian's attorney and longtime professional colleague. Marcus Bennett was listed as an independent construction consultant. Laura Mitchell wouldn't attend. At least, not officially. Melissa finished reviewing the seating chart. "Perfect." She handed the clipboard back to Ariana. "I'll check on the musicians." After she disappeared into the backyard, Christian's thoughts lingered. Melissa appeared completely comfortable organizing the event, yet Marcus had photographed her meeting privately with Evelyn Shaw. The contradiction refused to leave his mind. By mid-afternoon, Laura called. "We're in position?" Christian stepped onto the back porch before answering. "Everyone ready?" "As ready as possible." She explained the plan carefully. Federal agents would remain outside the property. No arrests, no confrontation. Not unless a crime occurred in their presence or immediate public safety required intervention. Benjamin would remain inside as an invited guest. Marcus would circulate among attendees. Several undercover agents posed as catering staff. Christian absorbed every detail. Laura finished with one instruction. "No matter what happens, you follow your original plan." Christian looked across the decorated backyard. Rows of elegant tables stretched beneath white canvas. At the center stood the small platform where Ariana intended to make her announcement. His sealed envelope remained inside the inner pocket of his suit jacket. "I understand." Laura hesitated. Christian. "Yes. If anything changes, trust the evidence." The call ended. Christian remained outside for several minutes. Trust the evidence. The words echoed repeatedly. Evidence had exposed forged medical records. Evidence had revealed shell companies. Evidence had connected Ryan, Evelyn, Michael, and the stolen servers. Yet evidence had also shown Ariana crying alone. Evidence had shown Ryan and Ariana behaving like business associates rather than lovers. Evidence had revealed that Ariana originally sought confirmation of Christian's infertility instead of requesting forged records. Each new discovery complicated the picture instead of simplifying it. At 5 o'clock, the first guests began arriving. Luxury vehicles filled the circular driveway. Old friends embraced. Business executives exchanged handshakes. Neighbors admired the decorations. Soft jazz floated through hidden speakers. Christian greeted everyone with steady professionalism. No one suspected anything unusual. Nathan arrived with Linda shortly afterward. Linda hugged Christian tightly. "My goodness! Look at all this." Christian smiled. "Ariana planned almost everything." Linda laughed. "She always did have remarkable taste." Nathan quietly pulled Christian aside. "You okay?" Christian nodded. "I will be." Nathan studied him for another moment before accepting the answer. Across the yard, Ryan Whitmore arrived precisely on schedule, impeccably dressed, confident, relaxed. He carried an expensive bottle of wine wrapped in black tissue paper. Christian watched as Ryan approached Ariana. They shook hands. Nothing more, no embrace, no lingering touch. Ryan congratulated her on the beautiful event before greeting several Buckeye executives. Marcus, disguised as one of Benjamin's industry associates, observed every interaction from across the lawn. He quietly spoke into the concealed microphone beneath his collar. "Whitmore greeting Reynolds. Normal conversation. No physical contact with Ariana beyond handshake." Laura listened from the surveillance vehicle parked 2 streets away. "Keep watching," 20 minutes later, Evelyn Shaw appeared. Unlike Ryan, she attracted almost no attention. Simple navy dress, minimal jewelry, no dramatic entrance. Most guests assumed she belonged to someone else's social circle. Marcus immediately recognized her. "So she's here." Benjamin casually accepted a glass of sparkling water from a waiter while discreetly observing Evelyn. She never remained in one conversation for more than 2 minutes. Instead, she drifted calmly through the crowd, listening, watching, measuring. Christian noticed her only after Benjamin subtly nodded toward the far corner of the garden. Their eyes met briefly. Evelyn smiled politely, then continued walking. Christian had never seen her before, yet something about her composure felt unsettling. She behaved like someone attending an event whose outcome she already knew. At exactly 6:45, Ariana disappeared inside the house. Melissa followed. Several bridesmaids from previous family weddings accompanied them upstairs. The guests assumed she was changing for the formal anniversary toast. Christian stood near the patio, speaking with David Reynolds. David lowered his voice. "The audit files are secure." Christian gave the slightest nod. "No one suspects." "Not yet." Before Christian could reply, Ryan Whitmore approached. "Christian, congratulations." Christian accepted the offered handshake. "Thank you for coming." Ryan smiled comfortably. "I wouldn't have missed this." His confidence struck Christian immediately. Ryan looked like a man expecting a successful evening, not someone worried about an ongoing federal investigation. That realization stayed with him as Ryan joined another conversation. 7 o'clock approached. The musicians gradually lowered the volume. Guests instinctively turned toward the illuminated platform. Melissa stepped onto the stage first. She tapped the microphone gently. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have everyone's attention, please?" Conversations faded, glasses lowered. Nearly 60 guests focused on the platform. Christian slowly placed one hand inside his suit jacket. His fingers touched the sealed envelope. Above the staircase inside the house, Ariana appeared. She wore an elegant ivory evening gown. One hand rested gently against her abdomen. The room erupted into warm applause. She smiled at every familiar face before beginning her slow walk toward the stage. Christian watched silently. Every investigation, every hidden meeting, every forged document, every unanswered question, they had all led to this single moment. And somewhere within the next few minutes, someone's carefully constructed plan was about to collide with the truth. The applause continued as Ariana reached the platform. She paused beside the microphone and looked across the backyard. Friends, family, business executives, neighbors, colleagues, nearly 60 familiar faces smiled back at her beneath the warm glow of hanging lights. For a long moment, she simply stood there. Christian watched every movement. Her smile remained beautiful, but now he noticed something else. She searched the crowd, not casually, deliberately. Her eyes stopped briefly on Ryan Whitmore, then David Reynolds, then Melissa Carter. Finally, they settled on Christian. She smiled again. The musicians faded into silence. Melissa stepped forward first. "Thank you everyone for joining us to celebrate Christian and Ariana's 10th wedding anniversary." Another round of applause echoed through the garden. Melissa continued, "This evening is filled with wonderful surprises." She laughed softly. "I've been sworn to secrecy for months." Several guests smiled knowingly. Melissa stepped away from the microphone. "The stage belongs to Ariana." Ariana took a slow breath. "Thank you all for coming. I know everyone has busy lives. So having all of you here tonight means more than you can imagine." Her voice remained steady, warm, confident. She spoke about their first meeting, their early years together, the struggles of building careers, buying their first house, supporting one another through difficult seasons. Christian listened quietly. Every story she told was true, every memory genuine. Nothing sounded rehearsed. Nathan leaned toward Linda. "I forgot about that camping trip." Linda laughed softly. "So did I." The guests relaxed. The atmosphere became increasingly emotional. Ariana looked toward Christian. "When I married this man, I believed I already understood what love meant." She smiled. "I was wrong. Love turned out to be much bigger than I imagined." Christian remained expressionless. Only his thoughts moved. Why now? Why this speech Benjamin watched from across the lawn? His attention shifted constantly between Ariana and the surrounding guests. Marcus quietly circled the perimeter holding a glass of iced tea. His concealed earpiece carried Laura's calm voice. "Status. No unusual movement. Evelyn is standing near the west garden. Ryan remains at table 3. Everyone appears relaxed." Laura answered, "Keep eyes on Whitmore." Marcus acknowledged silently. Back on the stage, Ariana continued. "There have been moments when I doubted myself. There have been moments when I questioned everything." She paused. "I even questioned whether Christian still trusted me." The statement caught Christian's attention. Several guests exchanged puzzled glances. Ariana looked directly at him. "If I ever made you feel alone, I'm sorry." Christian felt a quiet tightening in his chest. That apology sounded sincere. Very sincere. Benjamin noticed the same thing. He frowned slightly. This was not the speech he expected. Ariana reached into the podium and removed a folded sheet of paper. "I prepared a long speech," she smiled. "But standing here, I don't think I need most of it." She folded the page again without reading it. Instead, she spoke naturally. When people ask what success looks like, they usually think about money, or promotions, or beautiful homes. She slowly shook her head. "I think success is having one person who believes in you when everyone else doesn't." Christian's thoughts returned unexpectedly to the years after his accident. Months of rehabilitation, pain, depression. Ariana had remained beside him through every surgery. That part of their life had never been false, not even now. She looked toward the audience. "Many of you know that Christian rarely talks about himself. He carries burdens quietly. He solves everyone else's problems before thinking about his own." A gentle laugh spread through the guests. It was true. Ariana smiled warmly. Sometimes, too quietly. Christian looked at her carefully. There was something different in her expression now. Not excitement, not triumph, almost sadness. Then she finally reached the moment everyone expected. "Tonight, I wanted to share news that I believed would change our lives forever." Several guests smiled immediately. Nathan glanced toward Linda. She squeezed his hand. Melissa stood near the stage looking delighted. Ryan Whitmore lifted his wine glass. Even Evelyn Shaw watched without blinking. Ariana rested one hand against her abdomen. She opened her mouth. Then, she stopped. Complete silence settled over the garden. Christian watched her eyes. Something had changed. She wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring beyond the audience, toward the rear entrance. Marcus instinctively turned. 2 catering staff had entered carrying additional dessert trays. Nothing unusual. Yet Ariana continued staring. Laura's voice suddenly came through Marcus's earpiece. "Marcus? I've got movement." "What kind?" "Unidentified male, approaching from the east property line." Marcus casually adjusted his position. He finally spotted the man. Dark baseball cap, delivery uniform, rolling equipment case. He blended perfectly with the evening staff. Too perfectly. Marcus quietly answered. I see him. The man didn't head towards the kitchen. Instead, he moved behind the stage. Laura's voice became sharper. Do not lose him. Benjamin noticed Marcus changing direction. His instincts immediately followed. Christian, however, knew none of this. His attention remained entirely fixed on Ariana. She still hadn't spoken. The guests waited patiently, thinking she had simply become emotional. Ariana finally lowered her hand from her abdomen. She looked at Christian. Their eyes met. He saw tears beginning to form. Not staged tears, not theatrical emotion, real fear. She whispered so quietly that only the microphone barely carried the words. I'm sorry. Christian felt time slow. Sorry for what the mysterious delivery worker reached the rear of the platform. Marcus increased his pace. Benjamin moved simultaneously from the opposite direction. The stranger noticed both men. Without warning, he abandoned the equipment case, then turned and ran. Several guests gasped. Marcus sprinted immediately. FBI? The word echoed across the garden. Conversations exploded into confusion. Guests stood abruptly. Chairs scraped across stone pathways. Ryan Whitmore spun toward the commotion. For the first time that evening, his calm expression disappeared. Evelyn Shaw reacted differently. She didn't run. She didn't panic. She quietly reached into her handbag. Laura's voice exploded through Marcus's earpiece. Evelyn. Marcus changed direction instantly. Benjamin intercepted her first. Don't. Evelyn calmly withdrew. Not a weapon, a cell phone. She looked directly at Benjamin. You've already lost. Before anyone could react, she pressed a single button. Across the backyard, Christian heard a sharp electronic tone. Beep. His eyes instinctively searched for the source. The abandoned equipment case beneath the rear of the stage. Another beep, louder this time. Guests began backing away. Christian's engineering instincts recognized the sound immediately. Electronic timer. Marcus shouted at the top of his lungs. Everyone move! Panic erupted. People screamed. Tables overturned. Wine glasses shattered across the stone patio. Nathan grabbed Linda's arm. David Reynolds pulled two elderly guests toward the driveway. Melissa froze in shock. Ryan Whitmore stepped backward, staring at the equipment case in disbelief. Christian didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on Ariana. She wasn't running. She was staring at the case with absolute horror. Then she looked directly at Christian and shouted the first words she had spoken to him all evening. Christian, that's not mine. The timer emitted another piercing beep, and the entire celebration dissolved into chaos. The first instinct that surged through Christian was not fear. It was calculation. The sharp electronic beeping came in perfectly measured intervals. 1 second, pause, 1 second, pause. He had spent 2 decades around construction sites, demolition schedules, and industrial control systems. The sound resembled an electronic timer. It did not necessarily mean an explosive device, but nobody around him could know that. People screamed as they rushed away from the stage. Crystal glasses shattered against the stone patio. White chairs overturned. A waiter dropped an entire tray of champagne flutes that exploded across the walkway. Children cried. Several elderly guests struggled to move quickly through the panicked crowd. Marcus sprinted toward the abandoned equipment case. Benjamin intercepted Evelyn Shaw before she could disappear into the confusion. Ryan Whitmore instinctively stepped backward, his face drained of color. Christian noticed something important. Ryan looked terrified. Not surprised. Terrified. His thoughts sharpened. If Ryan had expected this, he would already know what the case contained. Instead, he stared at it exactly like everyone else. Laura's voice came through Marcus's concealed earpiece. Bomb squad is 6 minutes out. Marcus didn't slow down. We don't have 6 minutes, Christian suddenly shouted. Marcus? Marcus turned only briefly. Don't touch it yet. Marcus immediately stopped 3 yards from the case. He trusted Christian's judgment. Christian moved toward the stage. Despite everyone running in the opposite direction, Nathan grabbed his arm. What are you doing? Christian calmly pulled free. If it's what I think it is, we still have time. Ariana stared at him in disbelief. Christian, don't... He looked directly into her eyes. For the first time in weeks, neither of them hid anything. He saw genuine fear. Not fear of exposure, fear for him. That realization settled somewhere deep inside him. Christian climbed onto the stage slowly. Every beep echoed across the nearly empty backyard. Marcus positioned himself to shield Christian if necessary. Benjamin continued restraining Evelyn. She remained strangely calm. Almost satisfied. Laura's SUV screeched to a stop outside the property. Federal agents poured through the front gate. Guests continued fleeing toward the street. Christian reached the equipment case. He didn't touch it immediately. Instead, he crouched beside it. The sound came from inside. Regular. Mechanical. He carefully examined the exterior. No damaged wiring, no unusual heat, no chemical odor. One corner displayed the logo of Brooks Digital Imaging. His thoughts raced. The stolen forensic equipment. The warehouse, Virginia. Everything suddenly aligned. He looked up. Marcus? Yes. This isn't military equipment. Marcus frowned. What is it? Christian reached carefully towards the handle. Several FBI agents shouted simultaneously. Don't! He ignored them. Instead of opening the lid immediately, he listened once more. Beep, pause, beep. Then recognition struck him. Diagnostic startup, not detonation. He had heard similar tones from industrial scanning equipment countless times. Christian slowly released the safety latch. Marcus instinctively stepped closer. The lid opened. Nothing exploded. Inside rested a ruggedized forensic computer connected to several encrypted storage drives. The beeping stopped. The screen illuminated automatically. One message appeared in large white letters. If you are reading this, you are too late. The entire backyard fell silent. Marcus exhaled heavily. It wasn't a bomb. Christian kept staring at the monitor. No. It was meant to make everyone panic. Laura reached the stage seconds later. Nobody touch anything. Ethan Brooks, who had remained nearby with federal technicians, hurried forward. The moment he saw the equipment, his eyes widened. I know this system. He carefully examined the casing. This is one of Dr. Alan Brooks' original recovery stations. Laura looked toward him. Can you access it? Ethan nodded cautiously. If the drives haven't been destroyed. He connected a portable forensic keyboard. The system requested authentication. Instead of a password, it displayed a countdown. 5 minutes. 4:59. 4:58. Laura's expression hardened. What happens at 0? Ethan answered honestly. I don't know. Christian looked toward Evelyn. You do. Benjamin turned her toward the stage. Evelyn remained perfectly composed. Christian stepped closer. For the first time tonight, tell the truth. She smiled faintly. The truth. You've been standing beside it all evening? Christian didn't react. What happens when the timer reaches 0? You lose your opportunity. Opportunity for what? Evelyn looked toward the computer. To see who everyone really is. Marcus searched her handbag. No weapons. Only documents, 2 phones, and several encrypted flash drives. Laura ordered agents to secure everything. Meanwhile, Ethan examined the operating system. This isn't deleting data. What is it doing? Laura asked. It's waiting. For what? Ethan stopped typing. His face changed. It needs a second authorization. From where? He looked up. Another device. Christian's thoughts immediately returned to Ryan handing Ariana the white envelope. The envelope. He turned sharply. Ariana. She still stood near the microphone. Frozen. Where's the envelope Ryan gave you? Ryan immediately looked toward Ariana. His expression revealed genuine confusion. What envelope? Christian stared. You gave her one 2 nights ago. Ryan blinked. No. I gave her legal paperwork. Christian frowned. What legal paperwork? Ryan hesitated. Ariana answered instead. The trust documents. Everyone turned toward her. She slowly walked toward the stage. Federal agents instinctively moved to intercept. Laura raised one hand. Let her through. Ariana reached Christian. With trembling hands, she opened the small evening purse hanging from her shoulder. Inside rested a sealed white envelope. She handed it to him. I never opened it. Christian carefully unfolded the documents. Not pregnancy records, not financial agreements. Trust transfer documents, signed by Ryan Whitmore. The papers transferred ownership of several corporate shares to Ariana Cooper. Ryan spoke for the first time since the panic began. I told you not to bring those. Laura looked sharply toward him. Why would you transfer shares to her? Ryan stared at the ground. I wasn't transferring ownership. I was returning it. Christian looked up. Returning what? Ryan answered quietly. Her investment. Complete silence followed. Christian felt his thoughts collide. Investment? Ariana closed her eyes. Before we got married, I invested my inheritance. She looked at Christian. I never told you. I used Ryan's first development company. Ryan nodded. It grew for years. The shares stayed in my holding company. I finally convinced her to take them back. Christian looked from one to the other. So you weren't... Ryan interrupted immediately. No. I've never had an affair with your wife. I've been her financial advisor since college. Marcus quietly lowered his weapon. Benjamin looked toward Laura. Everything they had assumed about Ryan and Ariana suddenly shifted. Laura didn't allow herself conclusions. What about the warehouse? Ryan answered. I leased storage there. For Evelyn. Everyone turned. Ryan continued. I believed she was protecting sensitive corporate records. I didn't know what they actually were. Evelyn laughed softly. You believed exactly what I wanted. The countdown continued. 3 minutes remaining. Ethan suddenly pointed toward the trust documents. Wait. Everyone looked. Embedded near the signature line rested a tiny metallic square, a contact chip, not ordinary paper. Christian remembered the equipment requiring a second authorization. He carefully held the document near the forensic computer. The screen changed instantly. Access token verified. Decrypting archive. Progress bars filled rapidly. Dozens, hundreds, thousands of files appeared. Financial ledgers, hospital records, corporate emails, video recordings, complete backup archives, years of hidden evidence. Ethan stared in disbelief. My God! Laura leaned over his shoulder. It's everything. Benjamin whispered, the entire conspiracy. Christian looked toward Evelyn. She finally lost her smile. For the first time all evening. She appeared uncertain, and Christian realized the carefully orchestrated anniversary celebration had never been her final objective. The forensic archive had been. Someone had engineered every deception, every forged document, every manipulated relationship, and every public announcement to keep this evidence hidden until it could no longer be recovered. Instead, it had just opened in front of dozens of federal agents. No one spoke for several long seconds. The only sounds came from the forensic workstation as encrypted archives continued unfolding across the screen. File after file appeared. Hospital backups, accounting ledgers, board meeting recordings, property contracts, insurance claims, email archives. Everything the investigation had been chasing for weeks now sat in front of the FBI. Laura Mitchell broke the silence first. No one touches this system except Ethan. Federal agents immediately formed a perimeter around the equipment. Guests who had fled only moments earlier cautiously looked back from the driveway. Many remained frozen, uncertain whether they should leave or stay. Nathan stood beside Linda, shielding her with one arm. Benjamin released Evelyn only after another agent secured her wrists. She offered no resistance. Her confidence had disappeared. Not dramatically, simply quietly. She watched the screen with the expression of someone realizing years of careful planning had ended. Ethan Brooks continued working methodically. The archive is indexed. He opened another directory. It wasn't meant to be searched manually. Christian looked over his shoulder. What do you mean? Ethan pointed toward a folder labeled Master Index. They categorized everything. Laura leaned closer. Open it. Thousands of names appeared. Companies, doctors, law firms, contractors, government agencies, every entry linked to supporting documents. Benjamin stared at the list. This wasn't just one fraud. Laura nodded slowly. It was an intelligence archive. Christian felt another realization settle into place. Someone hadn't merely stolen records. Someone had been collecting leverage against everyone. Ethan suddenly stopped scrolling. I found Christian. Everyone turned. Christian Cooper. The entry contained hundreds of linked files, medical history, insurance correspondence, construction contracts, personal financial statements, private emails, photographs. Marcus frowned. They built a complete profile. Ethan clicked another name. Ariana Cooper. Another enormous archives appeared. Christian watched silently. He expected betrayal. Instead, the first documents surprised him. Investment records, college scholarship files, inheritance paperwork, letters written years before she met him. Nothing resembled an affair. Nothing suggested hidden romantic relationships. Ryan stepped forward, cautiously. May I explain now? Laura looked at him for several moments. Go ahead. Ryan took a slow breath. I started a real estate company 12 years ago. Ariana invested part of her inheritance before she married Christian. It wasn't a large amount, but she believed in me. He looked toward Ariana. I promised I would return everything once the company stabilized. Christian listened carefully. Ryan continued. When Evelyn approached us, she offered financing for expansion. I thought she represented legitimate investors. Laura asked. When did you realize something was wrong? Ryan answered immediately. When federal agents started asking questions. I confronted Evelyn. What did she tell you? That walking away wasn't possible. Christian noticed Ryan never once looked toward Evelyn, not out of loyalty, out of shame. Laura made a brief note. We'll verify every statement. Ryan nodded. I understand. Meanwhile, Ethan opened another section of the archive, a video file, timestamped 18 months earlier. Laura looked toward him. Play it. The screen filled with security footage from a conference room. Christian immediately recognized the location, Buckeye Infrastructure Headquarters. Several executives sat around a polished table. David Reynolds appeared among them. So did Christian. The meeting had occurred before the forged contracts were discovered. Christian remembered attending it. He had left halfway through because of another appointment. The recording continued after his departure. One executive slid several documents across the table. Another placed forged signature pages beside them. David's younger voice became audible. He already left. "We shouldn't do this," someone else replied. "He'll never know." The room became completely silent. Laura paused the video. "There. That's conspiracy." Benjamin nodded. "And forgery." David lowered his head. "I suspected something. I never knew they recorded everything." Ethan resumed searching. Another folder opened. Hospital access. Michael Sanders. Hundreds of unauthorized logins. Photographs matched timestamps almost perfectly. Emily Foster's printed evidence aligned with every digital record. Laura looked toward Ethan. Chain of custody. Complete. Metadata intact. Benjamin allowed himself the smallest smile of the evening. "This survives court." Christian barely heard the conversation. His attention remained fixed on Ariana. She stood alone near the stage. No one had approached her. She looked exhausted. Not defeated, just exhausted. For weeks he had believed every secret meeting proved betrayal. Now those assumptions had collapsed one after another. The pregnancy remained unanswered, but almost everything else looked different. He slowly walked toward her. She looked up. "I didn't know." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "I know," Christian answered quietly. She blinked. "You... No. I know you invested with Ryan. I know about the trust documents. I know you looked for proof." Tears filled her eyes. "I should have told you." Christian nodded. "So should I." She stared at him. "My accident. My infertility. I stopped talking about it. I convinced myself leaving it in the past was protecting us." Ariana slowly shook her head. I found fragments. Insurance letters. Medical bills. But nothing complete. I thought..." She couldn't finish. Christian understood anyway. She thought he had lied. He looked toward the scattered anniversary decorations. "So, we both made assumptions." Ariana closed her eyes briefly. "Yes." For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, Christian asked the only question that still mattered. "The announcement." Her hand instinctively rested against her abdomen again. "There is no baby." Christian remained still. She continued before he could respond. "I wanted to tell everyone we were adopting." He stared at her. She reached into her purse and removed another envelope, different from Ryan's. Inside rested documents from an adoption agency. Christian recognized the official forms immediately. Home studies, financial approvals, waiting list confirmations. "I wanted it to be our anniversary surprise." Her voice trembled. "When I discovered those fertility records, I thought you had hidden everything because you wanted your own biological child. So I postponed telling you." Christian slowly looked through the paperwork. Their names appeared throughout the application. His references, their financial records, their home inspection. She had completed almost the entire process herself. His thoughts drifted back to the anonymous fertility documents that had started everything. Forged records, manipulated evidence. Someone had counted on misunderstanding to destroy their marriage before either of them learned the truth. Laura approached quietly. "We've secured everyone." Christian looked up him. "What about Evelyn?" "In custody." "Michael Sanders. Arrested 20 minutes ago." "Whitmore." "Cooperating." Laura glanced at the adoption papers in Christian's hands. She understood immediately. "I'll give you 2 minutes." She walked away without another word. The backyard looked completely different now. Half the tables stood overturned. Broken glass reflected the hanging lights. Flowers lay scattered across the stone paths. The elegant anniversary celebration had become a federal crime scene. Yet in the middle of that chaos, Christian felt an unexpected calm. Not because every answer had been found, Some investigations would continue for months. Some trials would take years. Lives had been manipulated, careers destroyed, millions of dollars stolen. Justice would not arrive overnight. But one truth had finally become clear. The greatest weapon the conspiracy had used was never forged signatures, hidden servers, or stolen medical records. It had been silence. The silence between two people who loved each other, but stopped asking difficult questions. Christian folded the adoption documents carefully. Then he reached into his suit jacket, not for the evidence envelope he had prepared weeks earlier. Instead, he removed the small velvet box Ariana had given him that afternoon. He opened it. The new wedding bands rested exactly where she had placed them. He looked at Ariana. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like." "Neither do I," she answered. "But if we're going to rebuild, we start with the truth." Christian nodded. "For both of us." He gently closed the velvet box. Around them, federal agents documented evidence. Photographers captured the crime scene. Ethan preserved the digital archive that would expose years of corruption. The anniversary celebration had ended in a way no guest could ever have imagined. Yet for Christian Cooper, the evening did not mark the destruction of his life. It marked the end of every lie that had kept the truth out of reach. And for the first time since a sealed